why melanated motherhood terrifies systems of oppression. So we're going to be taking our time with our sisters today because I've been waiting for this, and I'm sure you've been waiting, and I hope that you shared the link with all of your contacts and made sure that people are here for this because this is historic. I want to first acknowledge that there was just a resolution passed in the UN whereby 124 acknowledge that chattel slavery is the worst of all human crimes in the history of the planet. And in that discussion, one of the things that came up is the fact that capitalism as we know it, they say, began in the womb of African women. And I smile, not because that's a good thing, but because the Most High Heavenly One has this conference in place, this Woman of Purpose conference, Rebranding Proverbs 31. It's in place to address just this. And so, Kahon Tefnan, how are you today?
Namaste, Kahun Uncle. I'm doing well, thank you. Yeah, I'm here.
So I'm gonna, just so you all know, I'm gonna ask each of you questions, and if anyone wants to add on, I'll ask if anybody wants to add on, but we're gonna just flow today. That's fair enough?
Fair enough.
Fair enough.
Beautiful. So Colin Teflon, I'm gonna direct this one at you. The womb is the battlefield. Who or what is battling in the womb and why?
Okay. So I'm gonna say to namaste to everyone who is here today. Thank you for joining us, and we are going on a journey. So without further ado, who and what is battling? We as mothers are are battling to keep our children, our culture, our ancestry in line and keep it. And not only are we battling with racism, white supremacy, but we're battling in the womb, what they're giving us, what they're teaching us. It goes from the beginning. And then if you look social media, news, everywhere, you can see that once a melanated woman is carrying her fetus or unborn child, she is told you need injections. She is told to take this food. And most of the things that we are being told, according to Western society or Western culture or Western narratives, is actually killing us and changing us and not allowing us to be the way we are naturally in our own culture and in our environment. That there is a battlefield because what they're doing and what they're trying to do is to get these women, because they know that if they capture the mother, who can capture the unborn child and twist that brain as it comes out, doesn't think in its own mind. This is the battle that we're facing against, so that they can turn that child to now be on, let's call it a war. Let's call it a war, their side of the war, their side who is battling against the melanated family, mother, father, children. So what they're doing is they're compiling all of this poisons in many different things, from all the way from food to literature to music. And that's why we as melanated mothers, when we're carrying child, when we're carrying, we listen to certain types of music. We study certain types of things. We speak to the child. We're teaching the unborn child from the womb before it's even born. We don't wait for the child to be born and then teach them. So we know that as that child is born, as that child enters into this world, it's a fight from there. So the battlefield begins from before the child is born. And that's what we are here today to explain, show, and say we need to get that back. We need to now go back into our own environment, our own culture. African-centered knowledge, wisdom, food, music, thought, family, everything must go back to where it began. And then we will win that battlefield.
Yes, yes. Dr. Ford, Revelation 12, chapter 7, verse 17. Revelation chapter 12, verse 17 says, and the dragon was wroth or angry with the woman, and went to make war with the remnant of her seed, which keep the commandments of God and have the testimony of Jesus Christ. Who is this dragon, and why is it mad at the woman and the remnant of her seed, and not the man?
You're muted, sis.
You're muted, Dawn.
You're still muted.
That's the dragon. Is she getting sorted out? If not,
Is that better?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Okay, so now you can hear me, but you can't see me. Okay.
Okay.
Here we go. Let's see. We can.
You
And
need
see,
me to
and,
repeat
and
the question?
yes, please.
Sure. Revelation chapter 12, verse 17 says, and the dragon was angry with the woman, and went to make war with the remnant of her seed, which keep the commandments of God and have the testimony of Jesus Christ. Who is this dragon, and why is it mad at the woman and the remnant of her seed, and not the man?
I'm just gonna start talking, and hopefully it'll make sense. When we're talking about this dragon that's been pursuing the woman, right? Because we're talking about, right, the beast, right? We're talking about in Genesis the snake, the serpent, right? And the great thing about the Holy Cryptic Church of the Black Messiah is we're a teaching church. If possible, I would like everybody, if possible, if I have any social media angels in the world, could we please go? Because I want the people to see it. I want everybody to see what this word, the seed, means, right? Because a lot of times we would hear it, we would hear the verse in Genesis, and we didn't understand it. We're talking about actually physical people. And so when you look at the Blue Letter Bible and you're looking at that word for seed, all right, in the Blue Letter Bible, right? The seed that's mentioned in Genesis is actually, when you look at it close, hopefully they should be bringing it up.
It's coming up.
When you say that enmity, that hate between his seed and the woman's seed, right? I'll put enmity between the serpent seed and the woman's seed. And can we look at that word seed? And it says zera. Now, the thing about how religion is kind of what we call blind faith, right? It never really goes into the language. So here at the Holy Cryptic Church, we're going to the language. And for you first time people actually being here, one of our ladies of purposes, we thank you for joining us. But this word zera, it is Hebrews, all right? And when you look further down, when you're looking at it, it says carnally, fruitful, seed time, sowing, seed. But that third word says semen. So these are actually physical people, right? And it's using, an analogy, for lack of a better word, to kind of describe a person's behavior, how they act. So when it comes to this 11 plus 1 clan sons of Canaan, one of the reasons that when we're going to put it in today's time, we're going to connect it to the birth rate. All right. One of the reasons why they are mad at us or mad at the woman, because the woman, that melanated womb, has the ability to procreate. She has the ability to give life. And she has not only the ability to give life, but she has the ability to give life to a melanated son, a little black or brown melanated boy. And this black and brown melanated boy, because remember in Revelations, it talks about how the dragon is chasing her to devour the child. Francis Trust Wilson talked about white genetic survival. And she talked about it, in which she talked about how melanated men when they have sex with other than self and kind, right? Which mix and mingling, the Bible talks about don't mix your seed, right? Because if you mix your seed, you get pulled away from your way of life, from your God, from your belief systems into something else. And so with that, this big dragon, this seed is extremely upset because this melanated child, this melanated seed, this melanated mother represents a complete opposite, not only to the theology of racism, white supremacy known as Hellenism, because it represents a liberation, not only of the mind, but of the spirit and of the soul. But it also represents the fact that they have difficulty having children. Social media, can you please pull up the latest global, just the global birth rates, right? These things are happening in Japan, in Korea, in the UK, in Sweden, in America, in Canada, places where non-melanated people are located. They're having problems getting pregnant, having children. And so part of this enmity is not only because this female, this child, plus the male, it represents the actual children of the Most High. So in the process of looking at the story and putting it in real time, and when we're looking at the birth rates and putting it in real time so people can see how this enmity plays out. Right here on the screen, it says global fertility rates vary largely by region rather than strictly by race, with non-African groups experiencing lower fertility in 2025. So Africa has the highest fertility rate, while Europe, and you see where it says a 4.0, while Europe has 1.4, Northern America has 1.6, and Asia 1.9 are significantly lower, right? Many developed non-Black majority nations are below replacement level. So replacement level is 2. And you're looking on the screen and they're not making enough babies to replace the people that's retiring or getting old or dying. I didn't do it. Google did it. So one of the reasons why they hate us so is because of this white genetic survival. They want to be able to survive and they don't have the ability to. And so the Black woman, one of the reasons in the Bible, you would see the Pharaoh. And the Pharaoh would always say, kill all the boys, kill all the males, but keep the woman. And one of the reasons why the woman was always kept because through sexual violence, under colonization, under slavery, under Jim Crow, you pick whichever name you want to use globally, they have been able to perpetrate or continue their seed by mixing into the genes. That's a rough statement. You say, Dr. Ford, what do you mean sexual violence? You can look it
what's
up.
that?
Christopher Columbus raped children, similar to pedophiles. We're talking young girls, right? In South Africa, sexual violence was always used as a mean of control throughout slavery. Could not perpetrate, could not call the police, could not say, masturbate me, because sex, when it comes to melanated women, our wombs, our bodies, we are viewed as commodities. Cardi B is a commodity. She making them millions of dollars. A commodity. And so when you're looking at women like Racy Taylor, who was gang raped by white men, nothing happened. When you're looking at the father of gynecology, right? Dr. James Sims, right? Where he would take African female slaves anywhere from the ages of 15 all the way up into their mid-20s and would do gynecological surgical procedures on them without anesthetic. Nothing happened. He's the father of medicine. He developed the septum. He is the greatest thing ever. But all of this was to exploit Black bodies. When you look at Sarah Bartman, nothing happened. So the Black womb, the Black mother, this is all due to the fact that racism, white supremacy, looks at us as a commodity, has genuine hate for us, and wants to be able to survive. Thus, he has to be able to control the Black woman, sex, her womb, and her reproductive in order to control not only her, but the seed coming out for the next generation.
Wow, thank you. That's very clear. With that being said, Elder Carr,
Yes, sir.
I want to ask, when you talk about the womb, like Dr. Ford was just saying, this womb has become a commodity. Do you understand the womb to be only biological, or is there more to it than that? This womb.
Womb is more than that because it begins with knowing that our body is more spiritual as well as physical. We're supposed to treat the womb as sacred because even from the beginning, when the seed enters the woman, her body looks at that as a foreign object that doesn't belong and will try to fight against it. And that's why you have so many semens being ejaculated into the woman, because only one is going to get through to the egg and fertilize it properly. And so she can gestate the baby that she's given. So what does she need to do? She needs to start honoring her womb by knowing who she's going to be with, knowing that his seed in her, whether it fertilizes it or not, will affect her mentally. It will affect her spiritually. And not just the one male that she's copulating with at that one time, but all the men that she may choose to copulate with in her lifetime up until she has the baby.
Wow.
So not only does she has to always also watch herself mentally, because that is going into the child as well.
Okay.
So all your past lovers, their influence is in your DNA when you copulate with them. Your personal DNA, your ancestors, your descendants are going into that baby. Your state of mind as you carry the child is going into the baby. So if you're sitting there and you're being angry that, oh, I got pregnant. Well, the main purpose for us being on the planet was to procreate. Sex, natural sexual union is what we are blessed with, being able to carry life in this plane. And that's the reason why people want to attack the Black mother, because she's giving life and producing our population. She's keeping our culture going. She's teaching that child from the womb by taking care of herself and knowing what reactions her body is having to certain items, knowing that if the baby kicks, the baby is doing what it needs to do to say, "Mommy, I'm here." So it's not just physical, it's
Right.
mental, it's spiritual, it's emotional.
Mm.
And we have to also pay attention to what we put in our bodies at the time of the gestation period. Because if we're eating the wrong things, it's going to inhibit that child from growing properly in her womb. So we, as Nubian Melanite women, need to pay attention to what we do to ourselves. We need to know our bodies. And because the womb is the most sacred part of our bodies.
Yes.
And
Wow.
teach others that sacredness and the history of that sacredness to go forward.
Right. Well, Alaka, you hit us with some serious stuff there. All the first time was just hold on. There's healing here. You know, we all
Mhm.
we all had a life that we may not be proud of, but there's healing. Don't run away just yet. My
Yeah,
sister Nala, how are you?
I am well, Kahon Namastu.
Namaste, my sister. In the book of Jeremiah, chapter 1, verse 5, it reads, Before I formed thee in the belly, I knew thee. And before thou camest forth out of the womb, I sanctified thee, and I ordained thee a prophet unto the nations. What does this verse mean when we look at it with African eyes?
Can social media bring that scripture up for me, please?
Please, which scripture, my sister, again?
It was
Jeremiah chapter
Jeremiah. Jeremiah chapter,
1, verse 5.
okay. And can you repeat the question again for me, please?
Yes, I am. As I read this particular verse, I just wanted you to just expound on when we look at it with African eyes, what do
Right.
we see?
Okay, so it says that I'm going to read it again. So Jeremiah
Sure.
chapter 1, verses 5. It says, Before I formed thee in the belly, I knew thee. And before thou camest forth out of the womb, I sanctified thee, and I ordained thee a prophet unto these nations. Okay. So when I look at this, especially from the aspect of the womb being a battlefield, right? I see that this scripture is telling us that the womb is a divine power. It's a site of creation, right? And from a biblical perspective, it's sacred. It's a site of divine partnership with the Most High Heavenly One, right? It
Sis?
is, right? Okay, and so it's biological, it's spiritual, it's cultural, and it's prophetic, right? So within our Africana-centered thought trend here, our womb, it carries ancestral memory, it carries identity, and it carries our future, right? And I'll go back to Marimba Ani, where she reminded us of that African-centered worldviews are rooted in life force and continuity, right?
Yes.
And also survival, right? So the womb, it embodies this continuity, and it makes it, and all of that makes it inherently a system that threatens um, the survival of those people that would want to have or have something against the womb and turning it into a battlefield.
Right, right. Thank you so much, my sister. So I'm hearing a lot of things. The womb is not just biological, it's spiritual, it's mental, it's emotional. Colin definite. Within atonism, within true Christianity, creation begins in darkness in the womb. What does this darkness represent in atonism? I mean, all my life I was taught darkness is evil. Is darkness evil? Or, what's that relationship of darkness and the womb.
Mm-mm. All right. When you're looking at darkness and the womb, now imagine, let's put it this way. When you have a group, a race of people, a tribe, whoever, that they don't like the darkness because in the darkness reveals truth.
Mm,
So all they know is chaos and chaotic things. Yeah, they only know explosions. They only know things that are fighting against each other. They don't know that in the darkness is where everything is revealed. They don't read the Bible because in the Bible it tells you, that when the earth was being formed, oh, then there was light. So what happened when there wasn't no
mm,
light? That was the
right.
darkness.
Mm,
When they're talking about you know, in the womb, there's no light bulb in the womb. The fetus or the young one can't switch on the light and say, "Oh, it's dark in here. Let me let me see what's going on. No, it
right.
doesn't happen. The darkness is in the womb. Everything comes out of darkness. When they tell you about black, they say it's negative. But yet the spectrum is what? All lights come out of the spectrum. It's black. So the people, the very same narrative of people, the tribe who's telling us, or the race of people, or, who's telling us, through Hellenistic stories, through their narrative, is saying all badness comes out of darkness. Why? Because they don't come out of darkness.
Mm,
Wisdom comes out of darkness. You don't find wisdom popping on with anything else. So ultimately, the primal, everything, the first, not the second, but the first, everything spans and is emanated, born, birthed through that darkness. But we are taught, like you just mentioned, that you was taught that darkness is bad. We're all taught darkness is bad
yeah.
through some
Yeah.
kind of waveform, TV programs, whatever. Children are taught that in the darkness, monsters come because we were the monsters to them, because we were the one that would eradicate their foolishness and their narrative and fight them down. And you don't have to look at the history books. You don't have to look at our history books. You don't have to look at even their history books. They say it. They don't realize that they're talking it, but they say it. They try to make us look like the bad guys, but when they went in, and when they went in, they saw all of this going on, so they had to crush it. But then they told our children that in the dark was badness, but it does not
Correct.
make no sense. It cannot make sense. How can that be? But yet you say that, out of this, out of no, this planet, out of this universe, there's darkness. You have the light of the stars, but there's primarily darkness. So out of that darkness is where you're seeking now to go elsewhere. So when we look at that and we bring that down, because we always say here, the Holy Coptic Church of the Black Messiah, you have the universe, you have the world, you have the planet, and that is the macrocosm. You only have to look at everything outside of it and see how suns and solars and everything is birthed. And then you look at how our bodies work. We are the microcosm of that macrocosm. So when we are taught, you, me, our children, those before us, that out of the darkness is the monsters, or you must switch the light on all the time, is because in that darkness is your ancestors. That's where your ancestors are coming from. That's where we're coming from.
Mm,
But they have to reverse that narrative and tell us that it is bad so that you won't look to yourself. You won't look in that line. You won't look in your lineage. You're not going to look in your DNA. And that's where everything, primarily our right mind and right thinking, will be. So they have to reverse the story in order for you not to look into the darkness, to find the wisdom of you, yourself, your ancestors, your great ancestors, and all those, bibbies and bubbas, as our saints, our Coptic saints came from and do entirely come from. That is our narrative. And so, we're bringing that to the forefront now. We're highlighting that darkness, that wound. Do you understand? Because when a mother is with child, and we're doing this, and we're reading or studying. I'll go back to that because that is a beautiful time when you're carrying a child, and then in that time where you're actually, if you want your child to be a mathematician, or you want your child to be perfect at this, or English
wow.
or literature, or whatever it is, you study that very same topic. Or if you're studying before, line up before you start carrying a child, and throughout the time of her carrying that child, this child will now elevate in that particular topic but they don't tell you that. And that's in the
No.
darkness. And even when
Yes.
you look, uh, uh, even when you look, I believe you can correct me if I'm wrong. In the book of John, does it not speak about the darkness of the light?
That's right.
And the light. What was the quote? I mean, I'm going to be saying it wrong. Let me quote it correctly.
John chapter 1, the light shineth in the darkness.
And the darkness
Darkness comprehended it not.
comprehended it not. They don't tell you the breakdown. They don't tell you all of that. But this is where the truth is revealed within the darkness.
Wow.
Can I jump in and add on?
Sure.
All right. Colin Toughnut said that so eloquently, but I just want to make sure that as everybody's here today, one of the things, if you look, just look at the screen, everybody. Do you see all these different hues and shades of melanin on the screen? You see all this
Amen.
lovely melanin, right?
Amen.
It's the melanin. Right? That is the beauty of that supreme blackness, that womb, right? Not only is it just one type of one shade, right? You can have copper, you can have, blue black, you can have olive green, right? You could have some yellow. Melanin is awesome. Social media, can you please go and can you look up just to show the people at home that melanin is being actively studied, that melanin is being studied by scientists
Yes.
because they understand that the people on the planet with melanin and with this wonderful sun cycle coming in, it is a benefit for us. So if we could just pull it up, that's the only thing I would like to just add on,
Sure.
right? Right here, melanin is currently the subject of intense interdisciplinary research, moving beyond its well known role in skin pigmentation to become a promising material in biomedical, electronic, and environmental applications. Right? Recent advances have highlighted its potential as biocompatible, biodegradable, and sustainable material with unique photophysical properties. So, the great thing about melanated mothers having melanated babies, you got access to melanin. And some non melanin, some albino, some non melanin people, they don't have that. So they don't get the same benefits. They don't get the same immune response. They don't get the same. Does that make sense?
Plenty
Yes, it
sense.
does. Yeah. I could add a
Thank you
little
so
bit
much.
to that too.
Sure, please.
Calhoun. It says darkness is essential for physical health, mental well-being, and ecosystem balance. It enables the production of melatonin, which regulates our sleep. It reduces risk of cancer and depression, and it supports immune function. So
Mm.
there
So
you
this is
go.
not a bad thing at all.
Not a thing. No, that's right.
Powerful. Yeah. Y'all are scientists. And
Oh, actually, let's not forget that. Thank you, Sister Shaniqua Bethel. Let's not forget that in that darkness where you're sleeping, it actually
That's
helps to
right.
regenerate, to boost your melanin. Right.
mm,
So
Yeah.
when you keep the light on, your whole circadian rhythm is actually put out. You need to switch that
oh,
off. Yeah, your circadian, not circadian, your circadian rhythm is regenerate.
mhm.
Your melanin regenerates in that darkness.
Wow. So that darkness becomes a womb again.
Yeah.
Wow.
Absolutely. That's where it begins.
In the darkness.
Peace
In the
begins.
darkness. So Dr. Ford,
Yes, sir.
uh, the womb in atonism, we're taught the womb is the first temple,
Mm-hmm.
the first classroom,
Mm-hmm.
the site of liberation for melanated people.
Mm-hmm.
What happens when we as melanated people lose control of our narrative, our lineage, and our spiritual authority? When we just lose control of all of that.
We gotta I wanna introduce a character that she is called Proverbs.
Mm,
Proverbs, can we go to Proverbs, second Proverbs? All right. And the reason I want to start in second Proverbs, because when we end up losing that melanin, we start losing our guidance, right? And we start moving away. And if we look here and when they bring it on up here, if you look at second Proverbs, I want y'all to notice the heading. Notice the heading for Proverbs 2. The pursuit, is that it? I'm sorry, I said Proverbs 2, Proverbs 7. Sorry, my fault.
Okay.
Proverbs 7. Ah, there we go. The wiles of the
Mm,
harlot.
House of
This
the
is my
house.
wow.
stuff right here. So
Okay.
when we start to, and I think and we all have been, subjected to the wonderful wiles of the harlot, because she is
Oh,
really
yeah.
popular right now. And
Mhm.
when we have to remember, under racism, white supremacy, they have usurped everybody. They usurped our African records. They bleached them. They whitewashed them. So a lot of times when they do present, right, whatever book they're presenting to us, they're going to present it to make sure that it benefits them before it benefits us,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
And so in Hellenism, one of the things they have is called sacred prostitution. Don't believe me? Check it out. They used to have these what we call sacred prostitutions, and at the different sites for their cults and their temples, they would have lots of women there who would participate in these different acts, right? Because they were, Greece, Rome, they were going to conquer the world. They had a lot of soldiers. So these women would be offered. They would be offered
Mm,
to the people at that point in time. So in our oppression, in our colonization, in our ability to try to get the people foot up off our neck, we would leave, or we were not given our original language, our original culture, our original anything. We would say, hey, your name is, we take away your name. We're going to take away your name. We're going to take away your God. We're going to take away your language. We're going to take away your land. We're going to take away
yes. Yes.
everything from you, strip that, and kind of reprogram you through trauma. We're going to
Right.
reprogram you through
Wow.
physical violence. This is going to happen over several generations. And so by the time you get up to 2026, right, we have some choices. A lot of times we didn't understand it in our pursuit of liberation. They even usurped that. And they gave us, especially as females, Pan-Hellenic liberation, where
Mm,
it was about, okay, once again, based off this sacred prostitution, hey, you want to be free? You could be sexually free.
mm,
You could do it with anybody. You can wear anything. Girl, you don't need no modesty, right? You can have an
Mhm.
OnlyFans page.
So
Sweetie,
many
you
ways.
can, but you want to make some quick money? You can do a porno real quick. We won't tell you. You don't even need a madam no more. You can pimp yourself out.
wow.
So in the process of us seeking this, right? We started taking on their emotions, their mindset, their foods, their versions of sexuality, their versions of love. So we didn't really get it, and we didn't know that. So let me come back. So when we did that, it messed us up on a couple different fronts, right? It messed us up because now, as women, first thing we think is, okay, I got to be independent. But the issue is, Black women were not having the same problems white women were having with our men.
Right.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm.
White women, they had a situation going on. And in the process of, hey, girls, come over here, because they needed the numbers, not that they were going to address any of the things on your agenda. They still was like, okay, no, we white women, we still caring. We still racist. However, for the purpose of legislation, I still need to be above you. So a lot of times Black people got used. And so we ended up saying, I'm independent. I don't need a man. It's okay. I could be a single mother. It's okay. And it wasn't even I could be a single mother, because technically, if you really want to be honest, single mothers was a popular thing under slavery through to these breeding farms. They made sure that we didn't have a man for generations, and now they want to look at us like y'all don't want to get married. When did y'all let us get married? I missed that
Mhm.
chapter.
Come
Mhm.
on.
Right. Wow.
That's true.
Right.
So when we move away from our narratives and we're taking on this other narratives, we're taking on all of their likenesses, all of their beings, all of their thinking, and we're taking on their God, and their God is violent.
Yeah.
Their God allows rapes in the Bible.
Yep.
They God allows, hey, kill them, everybody, firstborn, kids.
Yep.
Hey, I'm the Pharaoh. Kill all them kids.
Mhm. Yep.
That's not our God. And so
No.
we're saying here, African versions, we got to look at it through African eyes. Because as long as we're
Control the
looking
time.
at it through Greek eyes or Eurocentric eyes, it's always going to benefit them and it's always not going to be good for us.
That's
So when
right.
we move away from our narrative, we end up picking up things and we starting to act like this harlot, unbeknownst, unknowingly, because we
Right.
ignorant to the fact that we got an opposite choice.
Right.
May I add to it, please?
Sure. Please. Please.
Even the fact that if we lose control, this is where, you know, you imagine you have a bag full of valuable, extra valuable, and your great grandmother said, look after this bag. Wherever you go, take that bag with you. Don't let out of your sight. Don't let go. Don't give it to nobody. We lose
Right.
control of the bag. What happens to the
Mm,
bag? Somebody else finds the bag, picks up
mm,
the bag, takes the bag and said, this is now my bag. And this is what we call identity theft. If
mm.
we lose control, if we allow this out of control, we not only lose, we have to protect it. We lose our lineage, we lose our ancestry, we lose our story, we lose our narrative, we lose our minds. That's why today, through identity theft, we're not even thinking in our mind, but we're thinking with a mind, not our original, but a mind,
Right.
the mind of the thief or the thief, as we say in the Caribbean, has come in because we lost control. We didn't allow it, we tried to hold on to it, but then what happens? It's like a trickling effect. They affected one who said,
Yeah.
oh, it's okay. Like Dr. Ford just said, it's okay, you can do this, you can do that. We allowed that to happen because we were suffering with the ignorance of not knowing who we were, not having our
Right.
own morals, but taking on somebody else's morals, not knowing our story. Some of our children don't even know the fight that's happening and
Mhm.
been happening. Dr. Francis Cress Wilson, one of our bibbies, said that they don't know the fight. They're struggling. They don't know. If they don't know that fight, they will succumb to what has been given to them. And what's been given to them is you can twerk because you can earn
Mhm.
money until you're 30, 40, 50, twerking. And then when you're 70, your back is hurting you. Why? Can't stand up because all your life you was twerking. So what are you worth? The money that you were twerking with. What have you passed
Wow.
on to your children? You with me? So we're
Yeah.
Yeah.
going to be losing the transmission of culture, all of everything. You lose control of that, you lose everything.
Wow. Wow.
May I interject here?
Yeah, I was just coming to you, Elder Carr. Go ahead.
Now, the one thing that we find with identity theft is why, the question may come up like, why did we let it happen? But when
Mm.
you're taken from your land, taken from your culture, taken from your laws, because we didn't have all these laws about rape and everything because we weren't raping each other. We
Mm-hmm,
honored
mm-hmm,
each other. We came
mm-hmm,
Mm-hmm.
together as unified family. Our extended family had the aunts and uncles and cousins living in the same compounds, for lack of a better way of
Right.
saying it.
Right.
If you had a problem, you went to your elders in your family and you talked about it.
that's right.
Mhm.
You honored your mate. You you taught him things, he taught you things. He protected you because there were guidelines to being a melanated woman in our culture that we
Yeah.
had to honor our God and narrate the I am.
Amen. And Sister Carr, you know, that was actually where I'm happy you said that because I'm gonna throw this question right at you,
All right, I'll
right? And
catch it.
rebranding Proverbs 31 from an African perspective, how are men seen in relation to his role in the family and this Proverbs 31 woman, the rebranded Proverbs 31 woman?
The men are seen as providing balancement to the woman. We had responsibilities just like they have responsibilities. We took care of the home. We took care of making sure there was food on the table, that we were clothed properly, that we taught our children what was right and wrong, what was male and female. You had ceremonies that allowed you to grow as a male child, grow as a female child within your own culture. You weren't set upon the world like, oh, go and do what you feel like. Your father was responsible for protecting the home and providing outside sustenance for that home. But the mother also had the organization of the home where they would talk to each other. They would know the culture of their tribe. They would know what was expected of them when they came together. It wasn't a fight that I can be by myself. They took their influence and made us separate from our natural mates. They created laws that made us not want to have our men with us, working with us to succeed in the things that we need to do for our families, for our legacy. Males were strong and confident with the Proverbs 31 woman because she had an image to uphold. She had guidelines to uphold. She made the example of what true Melaninite womanhood was supposed to be. She didn't go out of her way to be against her own people. She united her people. I'll stay right there because I'll get on the.
Thank you. No, that was good. That was good. I know the time is coming nigh, so I just want to ask each one of you to respond to these next few questions based upon the time. What is the responsibility of conscious and conscientious melanated mothers to teach their children? This rebranded Proverbs 31 woman. What is the responsibility of this rebranded Proverbs 31 woman to teach the children?
Okay, first. Okay, I'll go first. All right. What is the responsibility?
Yes.
Okay. The responsibility is up to us to protect as well. We have our husbands and partners, the term we always refer to as husbands. We have our husbands who help protecting, but we have to protect. It's our responsibility that once in our own minds, we decide we're going to, I want to have a child. The first responsibility is who you're going to have the child with. The next responsibility is, am I in my right mind to have a child? But every woman's going to say, of course I am. Yes, I am. Of course I am. The next one's going to be like, well, whose narrative and what thinking are you bringing? Because you cannot allow any dustbin to enter into the church or into the palace. It's not going to happen. It shouldn't happen because you're putting something that is unclean into something that's very, very clean, or a temple, as we referred to earlier on.
Yes.
So that is the first part of your responsibility, is to make sure you do not let the unclean into the temple. Then after that, now, once you've sourced and you've done all your homework and you've said, okay, this is correct. This is the male who will be with me we will copulate together and bring forth this child. Now, what doctrine are you coming from? because you're going to have to be teaching a doctrine, whether it's, fundamentally our African-centered doctrine, as we're talking about Proverbs today, is it going to be ours, or are you going to teach Hellenistic doctrine so that that child now can be a part of Hellenistic soldiers? It's up to us. If we're here today, it means we want to make a difference. If we're a part of some form of church or consciousness or liberation or want liberation for ourselves, it's our responsibility primarily to make sure that the child we bring forth will also stand as guardians and teach them from the womb to be guardians, to be soldiers, foot soldiers. And I don't mean go out and pick up your rifle and start shooting up. No, we're not. We're talking about armies of truth, armies of scriptures, armies of what's right, armies of being able to stand up for your lineage, protecting your lineage, be right there for your race, people, culture, ancestors, everything, to bring that. That is our first primordial, that before we do even think to have a child with anyone, it's our responsibility, because it starts here. Then you're going to trickle that down to the child who's going to bring forth what you was thinking. It's going to manifest that. So make sure, as a responsibility, we're manifesting order. We're manifesting our ma'at. We're manifesting our doctrine. We're manifesting from an African-centered, not an infiltrated, adulterated African theology, but an unadulterated African-centered formation, doctrine, everything. First and foremost is our responsibility to do that, because we always say, oh, the children are the future. So then if the children are the future, what are you bringing forth? So we must look at that first. That's our responsibility, and that's only a small part of it. I'm sure there are sisters on the screen who's going to go further into it.
From the other sisters as well, Dr. Ford, what are we teaching the children?
We're teaching the children a lot. Okay, let everybody. We're gonna make an announcement. We are race people. We are race people, and so we have to teach our children racial pride. We're gonna have to have a conversation about this elephant in the room called racism, white supremacy, and how it works. So we just can't just tell our children racism's here, but we also have to tell them and explain to them how these social systems work so they are able to navigate it. Right? So it's not just, oh, be proud, be Black. That works academically, socially, but they also need to learn how social engineering works too.
Yeah.
Right. And so one of the great things about our Baba, John Henry Clark, he was talking about Gaddafi. And he was talking about how, a lot of times Black people have a fascination with the conqueror, and they have a fascination with going to bed with the conqueror. And he said, I know that's mean and I know that's raw, but it's true. And he was talking about how Gaddafi would send Libyans over to different places, and they would go to Europe to go to school. And he says, hey, I am sending you to school so you can learn this technology, so you can come back with this technology to make us a strong nation, so we can achieve greatness here on the continent. And he said, but you cannot achieve that through the legs of a European woman.
Wow.
So we have to have real conversations and be strong enough to tell that to African, Caribbean, African American children.
Yes.
That you can go to school, get educated, get your skills, get that trade, come back, marry a sister, come back, marry a brother.
Yes.
So we can build and get stronger. Because if not, the original books of the Bible, which is the ancient African version of the scripture, it has a verse which talks about how the vagina, we're teaching church, the vagina can be a hellhole.
Yeah.
That womb could be a hellhole, depending on who you sleeping with, right? So that hellhole womb, if you are sleeping with the wrong person, if you are with somebody that isn't moving you towards liberation, you have to use everything as a tool of liberation. Your religion, your economics, your education, your sex gender, your law, your entertainment, your security, your politics. Everything is a tool of liberation. We got to teach our
Amen.
children that.
Amen.
Sister Nala, what are we teaching the children, Sister Nala?
Okay, so first of all, the mother is the first classroom. She's the first prophet. She's the first architecture of consciousness, right?
Yes.
So her teaching is a constant teaching, right? So she teaches by being present.
Yes.
The children, she teaches through repetitive daily instruction, right? And Deuteronomy 6 verse 7 says that we have to teach them diligently, right? When we sit, wake up, lie down, rise up. Teaching is occasional, it's woven into the daily lives with our children, right? And we have to also teach them identity.
Right.
As a mother, we have to define who this child is, who this child is going to become. And it has to be beneficial to our people. So that's 2 cents.
Powerful, powerful. Elder Carr, what are we teaching the children?
We need to teach before we teach our children, we need to know ourselves. We need to start eradicating the Hellenistic doctrines that we've come to accept and think that we're like everybody else. No, we have to find that divinity that we were born with again and pass it on to the children.
Sure.
It's like Coretta Scott King had said, when you fight for liberation, it's not a fight that you're going to get to a point and you're done. You have to fight it over and over and over again. You have to teach that diligence to your child. You have to teach that pathway to your child. You have to teach that culture to your child. You have to look in the mirror every day and say, I am divine.
Amen.
I am perfectly made by the will of the Most High Heavenly One and Ray, and walk with dignity and teach that dignity to the child. So we will go back to our culture of greatness, of sacredness, of emotional stability.
Yes.
And I'll stop right there.
Amen. Amen. The womb is a battlefield. Now you can see why melanated motherhood terrifies systems of oppression. Again, my name is Cajon.
Let me tell you something, my grandfather.
And we've had 4 wonderful sisters here with us today. And I'm grateful to them for being here. And I look forward to the second session here at this Proverbs 31, Rebranding Proverbs 31, this conference that is going to propel us into a future of the women of purpose. Thank you and stay tuned.
You know your worth is stand up, cause it's ladies first.
She's the greatest gift in store for me, made in the image of royalty.
Why now? Because Black women never get a chance to have a second act, which makes sense if you think about our first act, because that was crazy. We were basically brought to this country to breed, and that's it. It was like real life Handmaid's Tale. People were like, oh, what if that happened? Could you imagine? Yes, we could imagine, because it happened to Black women. Okay. And the civil rights movement was no different. We were glad to be a part of it, and it wouldn't have happened without us. But it came with the cost of us missing out on the feminist movement because they happened at the same time. So we had to make a choice. Were we going to be Black or were we going to be women? And when your sons, brothers, and fathers are being hosed down in the streets, it wasn't that hard of a choice to make. And thank God we made that choice because we carried the weight of that movement on our backs, which is what we always do. We've always had to take care of everyone else. We've always had to be pragmatic, even when we're dreaming.
The birth rate is the average number of children that each woman has. And when birth rates are discussed, you'll see this number a lot, 2.1. This is the birth rate needed to maintain population levels. South Korea's not close. Last year, its rate was 0.72. Japan is at 1.26. To put this in context, the EU average is 1.53 and the UK is at 1.49, and that is a record low.
Reported about the rising cost of childcare for years at this point. Right. So I imagine that cost is one of the factors that came up in this research, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the CDC says the total fertility rate in the United States was 1.62 births per woman in 2023, which is well below the replacement level that we would need to get to of 2.1 just to have the population replace itself. And researchers point to a combo of economic and social factors. So obviously we talked about one of the biggest ones is cost of raising children. Also housing, childcare, healthcare, all of it's just become significantly more expensive, especially for younger adults who are newer in their careers. Childcare alone really can cost well over $10,000 a year in many parts of the country, so it's just tough to keep up.
Ladies and gentlemen, they're saying that the birth rate, in the United States of America is about as low as 52%. Almost half the women between 20 and 39 are childless. Yeah, there's a lot of reasons for that. Not a lot of available men. The men that are available ain't exactly the ones you want to procreate with. And then on the other hand, a lot of men ain't trying to, get nobody pregnant. And then on top of that, everything is expensive. Children are expensive. The only way you can put a child in daycare is if you can afford to pay for a house twice. That's the only way you can afford to. Because that daycare is a mortgage payment. That's what it is.
You guys know the number one indicator for how children grow up to thrive?
I thought it was the daddy in the house.
Absolutely not.
What's
Believe
that?
it or not, it is the quality of their mother's happiness. Because if you have a depressed mother, if you have an anxious mother, if you have a mother with post-traumatic stress disorder who is having to disconnect from her own body, she cannot show up to nurture you. She cannot show up to support you. She cannot fully step into that space. And what she will teach you about being in relationships with other people, whether you can trust them, whether you can trust yourself, whether you can actually be committed and connected to somebody and know that they will reciprocate that to you in a healthy way. She teaches you that not through her words, but through her actions.
Beautiful, it's your name. Wonderful is what you are to me. It's you I see in my dreams every day, and I pray for you, queen of my life. You are so beautiful, mama, so beautiful. Emi wa mama kan, ta ló rí yeye yẹn, mama mi ò rojú rí. That is why I'm loving you. Nítorí ọmọ ó jìyà ilé ọkọ.
I ain't never wanted nothing but some respect, and see the love from his eyes be reflected. Never looking for.
This is the Ladies of Purpose Christ Consciousness Conference 2026. We thank you for joining us from all around the world, the United Kingdom, Nassau, Bahamas, and the islands of the Bahamas, Trinidad and Tobago, Jamaica, all portions of the continent of the African continent itself, from Sierra Leone, Liberia, Ghana. Those of you in South Africa joining us, and of course those of you in these United States, we are grateful that you're joining us at this time, and we pray that you have enjoyed the first of the 4 sessions this evening. We're now about to move into session number 2. Again, this is Mothers of Melanated Liberation, Ladies of Purpose, the Christ Consciousness Conference. Rebranding Proverbs 31. The second session will be moderated, and the interviewer will be Elder Owen Burroughs from Nassau, Bahamas. And he'll be taking these ladies. I'll introduce the mothers of the Exodus, how women have always led liberation movements. We'll be having Sister Cassandra Frederick out of the United Kingdom, Sister Mukunda Nafir, we know her as. We'll be having Associate Pastor Karen Hilton will be joining us again, Kahun Tefnut. We'll be having Sister Shan Hita Pernepti, one of the advisors here at the Holy Coptic Church of the Black Messiah, the Journey Home Group International. We'll also be having Sister Zandia Shanti Malinki. And I know Elder Owen Burroughs, you have so many questions for these sisters, and I would ask them to please open their cameras and, well, do your best. Let's see what's going to happen. It's going to be interesting. I'm really excited to hear this group of sisters. Elder Owen?
Thank you so much. Can I be heard clearly? Can I be heard clearly, ladies?
Yes, you can. Namaste.
Yes, you can. Namaste. Well,
Namaste.
today we're gonna be dealing with the two topics: the mothers of Exodus, how women have always led liberation movements. Before there was a Moses, there was a mother. Before there was a movement, there was a womb. Exodus did not begin in the palace or the wilderness. It began in the hands of women who refused to let life be destroyed. It began with mothers who defied empire, who preserved children lost to death, and who understood that protecting a child was protecting a nation. Scripture tells us in Exodus, the midwives feared God and did not as the king commanded them, but saved the men, children alive. This was the first act of resistance, not with weapons, but with courage, conviction, and power to choose life. From the mother of Moses, placing him in the Nile, to Mary, raising a liberator, to Harriet Tubman, leading a people to freedom, history reveals consistent truth. Women have always been the first architects of liberation. They are the protectors of destiny, the carriers of visions, and the first teachers of freedom. Tonight, we honor that truth, that liberation does not start in systems, it starts in the womb, in the home, and in the voice of a mother who dares to believe that her child was born for more. Welcome, ladies.
Thank
Let's
you.
get this started. Sister Vandy, you know I'm gonna call you first, right?
Oh.
I need to know something. I mean, we keep throwing this word around liberation. What do we need liberation from? From who? From whom? From what? What are we trying to achieve? What is this liberation we're trying to achieve? Liberation from what and from whom?
Okay. Let's concentrate on what this segment is about. And first off, I want to thank the Holy Coptic Church of the Black Messiah and our Basesh for allowing us to be here another year for this annual conference, and to all my sisters on the screen and all the guests joining. But the focus is on the womb this year. And so when you're asking about liberation, we need that which is going to liberate our wombs and the children which are being brought forth from the wombs. Because when we are not in control of our wombs, we are leaving it up for grabs, right? People are, when we hear it, sometimes we're just thinking about an individual, my child, my womb. But when we understand that the moment we lose control of being the first teachers, the moment we lose control of having the first classroom, the moment we lose control of how we protect the children being born forth from our wombs, we leave other cultures, other people seeking dominance to have power over our children, over our seed. So here in the Holy Coptic Church, we always talk about the 9 areas of people activity: religion, economics, labor, sex, gender. So it's not just about someone wanting your child because they hate your child. But if I control your womb, then I can control the religion of the child. that's being raised from that womb. I can control the economics of the child that's being raised from that womb, the sex, gender, the law, the world. All of those areas are now being controlled and dominated from someone else, right? So if I can control the mind of the mother, it's not just about the child, but it's the mother that's carrying the child. If I control the mind of the mother and get her to be removed from her culture into my system of thinking, my system of oppression, this European system of colonization that we have faced, now I control the religion of your child. So you're not going to teach your child culture. You're not going to use the womb as being a classroom of melanated and African worldview, theology, and cosmology, but now you're going to use the intellect or the non-intellect of the invader and of the colonizer to now teach that child.
So you're saying, I mean, in a nutshell, that this mind, by controlling the mind, you control everything else about the individual, everything they do, everything they own, everything they possess, because you're now penetrating that thinking. You're directing their course of action, how they view things, their worldview, and now they are becoming victims to your dominance. Wow, that's awful. Thank you so much.
Go ahead.
Can you tell me what this liberation looks like? Ms. Zandi laid out what we're trying to become liberated from, but what does the end result, what does liberation look like before we get into these women in Exodus?
Okay, so liberation looks like a people who govern themselves. Liberation looks like a people who are in their own environment, who's not afraid to be themselves, who doesn't have to look to always explain why they do what they do, while the rest of the world looks on and judges. Liberation looks like, okay, a set of people, a race of people, culture who live in their own culture, who's living their own land, who's speaking their own language, who dress in their own clothes, and they're absolutely proud to dress that way. They're absolutely fundamentally first in all those things, especially what Sister Azanda just mentioned, their religion, they're proud. Their economics, they're proud. Their education, their sex gender, everything they're proud in. And they walk and they stand upright without having to second guess it or think that somebody else is going to judge me or I am going to have to wear these clothes. Can't wear my African traditional clothes because somebody's going to look at me funny. Liberation looks like all of that doesn't matter because you're proud and you stand up and you guard and you protect what's yours without even worrying about what John or Paul is thinking.
Self-determination and self-rule. You love that.
Yeah, yeah.
Let me get Sister Shan into this conversation. So Shan, in Exodus, it says in Exodus 2:3, she took for him an ark of bulrushes. So it begins with this mother performing. There weren't any weapons being used. It was a simple act. How does this mother becoming involved in this process, how does it shift the understanding of what liberation means? I mean, the concept that many people have of liberation is this male-dominated, this male-led initiative. It has a lot of resistance and pushback and violence, but yet we see this woman, the mother, just making an ark of bulrushes. How does this simple act in Exodus 2:3 change the narrative on the role of women in liberation? Can you hear me? Sister Matinda, did you get that question?
Sorry, can you repeat that for me, please?
I want to know how did a simple act from a mother in Exodus 2:3, how did this act change the way that liberation is seen today from a male-led, male-dominated, very aggressive stance? And how could this simple thing that these women are doing in Exodus change the mindset on how we view liberation and the role women play in liberation today?
Well, I think we're talking about Moses' mother, Jochebed.
Yeah.
And at a time where the Pharaoh was killing all of the baby boys, she wanted to save her son. And her act of putting him in the Nile River, was an act of defiance. It was a disobedience. It was a mother's protective nature to protect her child, to ensure that he got the education that he needed, to ensure that he had everything that he required and that he could get that without being harmed, so that this generation could continue and that he
Now,
would be able to grow.
What do you mean he got an education? What do you mean? She put him in a basket. Where does education come into that? Help me
She put him.
understand that point.
Okay, so biblically, he's put in a basket, but from an African perspective, the Nile is the artery of the Niger Delta civilization. And so what we know is that he wasn't actually put into this Nile. He was given to or asked to be looked after in one of the temples where he was educated.
Okay.
So this act of defiance from a mother, but also protection, is a refusal to be held down, a refusal to be oppressed, and a refusal to allow the oppressor to harm the future generations.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's powerful. Sister Shanna, can you hear me? Just let me know if you can hear so I can actually bring you to the seat.
Yes, I can.
Okay, Sister Van, you wanted to say something before we
No,
move on to the next?
I thought Sister Sham wasn't working. I was going to jump in. Go ahead, Sister Sham.
Well, I know you're ready. But listen, Sister Shan, I wanted to ask something of you. So Lenora Hudson Weems said Africana womanism is committed to the survival of the entire people.
Mm-hmm.
So is this contradiction? We have one woman doing one act in this Exodus. How is that communal? I mean, Lenore Hudson Weems said that, we must look at survival of an entire people. So Exodus has to be more than just a maternal, an individual maternal story. How does it relate to the liberation of a people through that act?
Okay. Number one, there was an edict sent down that all of the sons born would be dead. She hid her pregnancy. She knew the dangers of that, because if they had found her child alive, they would have more than likely slaughtered all of the people, because there is no way they would have assumed that none of them knew that she was pregnant. And they would have gone on the theory that if one did it, then many more were being hidden. So although she gave life to her child, she knew with that one act, she had to give him up in order to save many more. The one for the many.
Great. All right, thanks for that. Pastor Chapter. When you look at the midwives in Exodus 1:17 talks about the midwives, they feared God and did not do as the king commanded, because the king had told these two midwives to kill the male children and to save the female children, but they did not do it. So this act of resistance and this sabotaging of those orders, what did that mean from a liberation standpoint? How did these women standing up and just refusing to participate in that action, how did that resonate in this liberation
story? That how it comes forward is because those women didn't just look at a baby and feel sorry for the baby and say, oh, we can't do that to this baby. They knew, they had a culture. They themselves had a way of life. They they fully understood what was being said of them and what was being commanded. But they knew it's like how many of us are out in the world and we're doing, and many of us are like undercover agents for atonism. So we go through the world, as it says, what be in the world but not of the world. So those are the midwives and her assistant. They were there and they fully knew what was going on. They could see what was happening. They said, not this child. We have to do something. So first we stand. We don't have two masters. We have one, which is the Most High Heavenly One, and Nere. And we will follow that command. There is a way. We're in a position to make sure that this child doesn't succumb to the hands of those that are trying to wipe out that generation or the people. They then said, okay, we will find a way because our strength is stronger than that of the enemy. We can find a way. And through that, that's what they did. And they started that revolution. They started that liberation just by that little act. And they gave power and thought to everyone else who said, that's what we have to do. We have to protect our children because we know this is our lineage. We know that they will carry our culture. So we will meet back with them again. We will make sure that we will see these children again because they are our seeded entities, to make sure that it comes about again. And from that, what they did, that little act that is so overlooked, was the start of our liberation, to make sure that our children survive and their children survive and their children's children survive and keep going forward.
Because of Acts 5:29, we ought to obey God rather than men. So this defiance, this disobedience, this resistance to do that evil act was a very courageous liberation. It's powerful. Sister Zandi, can you help me to understand from Niger Delta on up to Nile Valley civilization, theology, cosmology perspective? Why is the womb considered the first site of resistance? We don't understand that. And with today's theme that we're talking about women and motherhood, the womb be the first site of resistance.
That's a great question, Elder. I want us to first understand, for those joining us for the first time, the blessing that we have here at the Holy Coptic Church is that we're speaking about Kitabun Magana, the African book of Proverbs. What we're used to reading is someone else's narrative and perspective of Proverbs. But we've been blessed to be given the translation of the African books of Proverbs, which speaks to us. And when we get this understanding of our story, it doesn't limit us to what we've been promoted our whole life. That is this one special child in this one special place and a one special courageous woman. The Nile was a sign of the root that was taken. This was a network of women working together to save children. And in Proverbs 31, I just want to read something. It says, the vision, verse 34 from the African book, Kitabun Magana, the vision and prophecy of the sages do declare, you with discipline and responsibility to the people. They carry children upon their backs. They carry children. So it was not one person. So we sometimes get branded this one story, but they did this. They carry children upon their backs while carrying revolutions within their heart. This is something that had to already reside within them. And when the Hellenistic world tried to break the spirit of our people, because we asked, well, who's the people that we're fighting against? Who we're trying to liberate from? Who's this dragon? We're talking about the Hellenists, which is represented. This is racism, white supremacy. This is a system and a group of people that go by many names that we're still coming in contact with and encountering today. And the Hellenistic world tried to break the spirit of our people, but the mothers of the nations refused to bow. So we're talking about mothers that refused to bow and that chose life over oppression, that chose over their rulership, over their demands, over what they were being told to do. They chose not to bow. So your question, Elder, again was, if you can repeat it.
How is, from an African cosmology, what does this womb as the first site of liberation? Help me to understand that a little.
So if these mothers refuse not to bow, they already carried liberation in their heart. And everything that a mother has within her is being passed, is being transferred into the womb, into the mind and heart of that child. While the child is being carried in the womb, what the mother thinks, what she sings, what she watches, these are all imprints that are being passed.
Wait. Slow down, Sister Van. Are you saying that everything the mother's going through, if she is engaged in things that are beneficial and loving, and the child is going to benefit that's in her womb?
The child is going to benefit.
It's nothing to strain that child?
In African theology and cosmology, we don't wait for the birth of a child to teach the child. We understand that the child is alive while the child is in you. That's why they say 9 months, but really they're not counting the 3 months of conception. They're not counting the time that the child is first, when that spark first takes place, right? So we understand that as long as that child is alive in you, that child is being taught. And everything that we are doing is imprints on that child. So that child is being taught from the second that spark and that implant takes place. We have our bodies have to have the right nutrients to hold that child. Our bodies have to have the right environment. It has to have, and all of these things are different based on the different people carrying and who they're carrying for. It doesn't look the same for everybody. So we have to understand, when we as Africans we're trying to become like these mothers. And with us trying to become like these mothers, we have to understand they had a clear understanding of how liberation takes place far beyond before the child comes out the womb. They read to the child. They sung to the child. They understood that they cannot be around a toxic environment. But because we are dominated by Hellenistic thinking, we feel like we could talk crazy about the child's dad, or we could go to the club and we could still party, but we can have a sip of wine. They tell us that it's still healthy to have, a little bit of red wine, and that we can still do the things that are detrimental to the child. But then we pray to have a healthy child that's going to come out and be smart, no defects, have all of these things. But we didn't understand, wait a minute, that the prayer doesn't start in the delivery room. This began way before the delivery room. So this is them not bowing to that system of thinking and understanding. Our system is completely different.
Right, that was very clear. Sister John, the baby is now here. We're assuming the mother did everything right. Like Sister Zandy said, she chose the right partner. They were in the right mental space when they came together and copulated and did the act, and the child was getting the right nourishments and the right environment, and all of these things were taking place. The child is now here. What can the mother do in that home to help pair that child to have a liberating mindset, a child that's going to bring value to our people all over the world, that will make a difference on this earth, and will help our people to rise? How can the mother start to shape that child? What are some of the first things she needs to teach her children?
Number one, discipline. If a child is not disciplined, the child will not learn.
This is a child. How do you teach a child discipline? I thought you had to teach them knowledge first. You teach them discipline first?
No, discipline before knowledge.
Okay.
Have you ever had a child or been around a child? You're trying to tell them, no, don't touch that, and they are all over the place. Hyper.
Oh, yes, I know.
They're just sitting there.
Yeah.
The parent is just looking, oh, stop that. Oh, that's just the way he is. No, they did not teach them discipline first. And it's not something that you have to beat the child or anything. No, you teach them. Don't touch that. When they do, no, take them back. They do it again, take them back. Children are very smart. They're not stupid. They understand. One time, my nephew, I told him not to touch the iron. I told him twice. I said, okay, I turned it off. Left it there. It was cool, but it was still warm enough to burn. So he decided to touch it. Okay. He learned not to touch an iron that day. Discipline.
After the discipline is being
Because
reinforced
if
in
you
the
don't
home.
discipline that child, the world will do it for you. And your
So
child may
this
not come back alive.
discipline creates an environment where learning can take place easily, or they can
Yes.
retain more.
Yes, discipline helps. You set a bedtime. Their food, the type of food you give them. Not too much sugar, starch, that hypes them up. Okay, lots of fruit, vegetables. Exercise. Engagement with other children. And then you teach them about their history and their family. Reading. When that child gets
Lost you first.
sorry,
Okay, you're back.
back? Yes.
Yes.
They should have already learned the basics of reading,
Okay.
arithmetic, those sort of things, manners.
Huh.
Good
Okay.
afternoon, good evening, good morning.
Okay.
Excuse me. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Huh.
Those basics, and you build from that.
Well, I wouldn't think that, and this is why I love the church. I learn new things every time we get together. That discipline is the foundation you can now build house of learning on. So that's a great point. Sister McKinley, I want to ask you, a child that did not have that environment, they weren't given the discipline, they weren't given the foundations of learning, and now the mother and the father, the parents of the child, come into an awakened state. They want to identify more with their African heritage and the liberation of their people. How does that family, how does the parent, and particularly mother, how does the mother reinstitute this identity of purpose and self-love into this child?
Well, as Sister Shan said, discipline is going to be a huge part of that. But it's also going to be about an example. When a child gets to a certain age, they need to be shown, they need to have something to look up to, someone to follow. So if you as parents, you weren't into consciousness in any way, shape, or form, and now you want to become, you're going to start doing those rituals, but you've got to involve the children. You've got to start taking part. You've got to start going to church together, going to the kinesis. You've got to start doing your chanting together. You've got to light your Shabbat candles. You've got to do your Shabbat ritual. You've got to do all those things and include the children so that it can become habitual. It can become a way of life, not just for them, but for the whole family.
Yes.
Okay, I like that. Thank you so much. Sister Zandi, I wanted to jump back on a point you were making earlier, because you were talking about the womb. And I want to understand, what does the quote, the kingdom of heaven is within? That's in Luke 17:21. How does the kingdom of God is within you? Yeshua Quran said that the kingdom of heaven is within. Does that have any correlation to this womb? Could there be a side of that is related? This kingdom of heaven is within, and now this mother is carrying child, the seed within her, and also the mother is rearing a child in her home. Can all three of those environments be kingdoms of heaven?
Absolutely, Elder. I didn't hear the three environments. You said in our home, in the womb, and what was the other one?
Home, in the womb, and when Yeshua said the kingdom of God is within.
Oh,
the
yes.
kingdom that's within us as well.
Absolutely.
The correlation between those three states.
Right. We understand that the Most High placed a portion of it, says that in Genesis, that the Most High God placed a portion of Himself within us, and we became a living soul. We became Nefesh Kayim. So what we have to understand is that when we're looking at this balancement, right? It takes us to, at the Holy Coptic Church, we have something called the original books of the Bible. And in the original books of the Bible is the book of Ma'at. And in the book of Ma'at, it talks about this balanced state. And that is exactly what you're asking, internalized. What was the exact word that you used, Elder? The kingdom within. Ma'at is the kingdom within, internalized. But we understand that the outer world is a reflection of the inner world. So everything that is happening internally between the mind, the spirit, the soul, all of these parts of a person, we call them the 9 principles. Everything that is happening internally in that mother, in that individual, the outer world, in the home, and the environment around them, everything that they're shaping and forming and molding is going to reflect that inner world. So when we're out of balance, when our mind is out of order, the house is out of order. When our mind is out of order, the children are out of order. When our mind is out of order, we see it happening in everything else around us. So the kingdom within is the reflection of divinity in us. And when we can place ourselves in a divine state, you asked about discipline. African theology says discipline before authority. So to be a mother figure or to even raise a child, we say we want our child to grow up and be leaders, be a leader, not a follower, to have authority as a mother to teach a nation or to raise a child to have authority, we must have discipline first. And that's a part of that state of Ma'at balancement. That's a part of that kingdom within, because the Most High, you have to be disciplined to follow even the laws and commandments of the Most High. So it must first be internalized for then the outer world to reflect that state. And that's the womb of that's the child, that's the environment, the house, and that's the individual, the mind.
State has to do with that coming into agreement with the laws and the precepts and the commandments and the principles of the great I am, creator. So when we have those states and environments that are conducive to the form of thought, when we look at it from the African cosmology and theology, we're moving in a state of heaven. We're in that state of bliss where we can excel as a people.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay. Sister Mapunda, when you hear this, Proverbs 1:8, it talks about forsake not the law of thy mother, right? What's this about this law, thy mother, and continuity in the African perspective and the way that mothers pass on teachings and morals and rules and ways of acting to the children, how we are to our culture, how we are to interact with one another. Why is this continuity so important in the hands of mothers?
The mother is seen as the first teacher, yes?
Yeah,
but she's also the transmitter of the culture. She's also the transmitter of religion, the continuity, as well as generational building, etc. So when mother is conversing with the children, it's important for her to be able to pass on that knowledge. So, for example, let's start with the culture. We got to teach about who we are. We got to teach them about what they can achieve, what they can aspire to become. We got to teach them the basics, the reading, the writing, all of those things. We got to teach them all of this. Their knowledge, their heritage is important in order for them to be able to move forward with confidence, with I can't think of the word. In order for them to move, to be successful, for them to be proud of who they are, and to not
stability.
Yes, and to not be so easily fooled or so easily tempted by what they can be taught at schools, etc. I'll use school for an example. We send our children into schools, and more often than not, when we send our children into schools, they are taught under the system of white supremacy. And so But us as mothers, we have to make sure that whatever it is they're being taught, that we keep an eye on that. And we have to debunk that. And we have to reinforce our thoughts, our traditions, our cultures, our practices, the foods that we eat, all of those things. We have to now reinforce that in our children so that they are not so easily swayed. Sister Azandi spoke about the environment. So, for example, they go to school and the food that they're serving in schools is not the healthiest. It's loads of sugars, there's lots of fizzy drinks, etc., etc. All of this is going to affect the way the child is thinking, the way the child is behaving. And so we have to make sure that we're putting in place and we are instilling all of the right, correct traditions and practices as a mother to ensure that these children are not going to be corrupted.
And I really give thanks for the Holy Church and for events like this, because if someone is listening for the first time, it may sound so overwhelming. Like, how can I ever do all of these things? But this organization and organizations like this provide the framework and the support and the structures so that you can start to add these things to the development of your home and your family. Thank you so much for that, my sister.
Absolutely.
Sister Sharon, can you give us some examples of mothers? We heard about the mothers in Exodus and the women of Exodus. It was a long time ago. But can you help us to see in real time in recent history, or some names that really live this liberation from a mother and a nurturing perspective?
Yes, I can. Nandi, Shaka Zulu's mother, South Africa. She was a single mother, or rather the second wife. She was not wanted there. She left with her children. They traveled, I think, to 3 different settlements. And during that time, they had assassination attempts. She had to defend her children. She got to a settlement that accepted them. And during that time, she taught Shaka how to defend himself. She advised him because he was able to go back and conquer, right? And conquer and.
Go ahead. Sister, you still there?
Oh, can you hear me?
You're back.
Can you hear
Yes,
me?
ma'am.
I'm
Yes,
back?
ma'am. Yes.
Okay, good. Okay, she was his advisor until her death. At that time, I don't think he was ever defeated. He actually had the British ready to surrender.
Okay.
Okay, and there's another one as well. Her name was Victoria Monto. She was actually from the Dahomey. She was one of the Amazons. They call them the Amazon. She was captured in battle. They shipped her off. She ended up in Haiti, where she met a young child, Jean-Jacques Dessalines. She taught him the art of war. He led Haiti, first revolution, Black people in the Caribbean, free state, and the only one to this day. And of course, I can't forget.
There's something on the screen here about Marcus Garvey's death in 1940. His wife, Amy Jack Scott, became primary custodian of his legacy, raising their 2 sons, Marcus Jr. and Julius, while actively sustaining the Garveyism movement. She continued her work of editing his writings, authoring Garveyism, and mentoring new generations of Black activists. We saw the same with Winnie Mandela when Nelson was in prison. So thank you. Because we hear these people, these women, and we think that they're so far off from us, but we have them right amongst us. Because
they're not.
These great men today,
and then you have one,
mothers.
Medgar Evers' wife. He was a civil rights leader. He got assassinated. And she did everything she could to keep that in the forefront. And they finally
That's right.
arrested and charged 2 men that were responsible for his murder. At least 40 to 50 years. Yes.
Wow. Wow. Mary Evers Williams.
Yes.
My husband's legacy was instrumental in keeping their memory and pursuit of justice for Medgar Evers alive following his assassination. She transitioned from activism to primary champion of his legacy. That's what this conference is all about, recognizing the contributions that our mothers have to the liberation movement. Now, Chaplain, what does death, life, or in the power of the tongue mean to mothers and to you in this context of liberation and having our mothers lead this liberation movement? How is the power of the tongue, the mother's tongue, and speaking into our children's life, what does that mean in liberation?
Sorry, could you say that again? I couldn't quite hear the beginning of your question, Brother Owen.
Death and life are in the power of the tongue. What does that mean for a mother to speak the right things to her children when we're talking about women leading the liberation movement in the homes?
What does it mean to do that?
Yeah, just how important is it? I mean, you know, we see examples of mothers on social media, and a lot of them are saying things that really raise their children up. How important is it for mothers to speak right and positive things in the children's lives?
Oh, do you know what? Important, if I use the word important, it will just play down the situation. It'll play down just how, how great it is to do that. I want to start off with a quote from one of our Coptic saints, and that's Bibi Dr. Frances Cress Wilson. And she says, children are the only future of any people. If the children's lives are squandered, and if the children of the people are not fully developed at whatever cost and sacrifice, the people will have co-signed themselves to a certain death. So, in answering your question, this is how important it is to pass on this information, the knowledge, the order, the discipline, the morals, the literature. It is so, because if we don't, and this evening you've heard many of the sisters speaking that is importance, because if not, someone else is going to come in and take those children. In fact, you can actually see what's happening today. We don't have to talk about, you mentioned the past, or so long ago. It's been happening from the past, and the same thing is happening generation after generation after generation. Today, we're in 2026, and they're still trying to have the narrative of wiping out the things that they have done, where the Hellenistic vultures have gone in and killed, manipulated, taken, burned, done a scorched earth, therapy on the earth, and actually and even now, they're trying to take history books to wipe out what they've done. They're trying to take, and so they can then tell our children's children, it wasn't us. We never did that. There's no proof. So it's so important to make sure that these children know what's happened to them. Not only that, because our narrative doesn't start with slavery. It started way millions of years before that. Yeah, thousands of years before that. So we've got to make sure that those stories are passed on. This is in our DNA, our RNA. It's got to be, our liberation is based on that. So not only is it important, because as well as that, any empire that wants to take over a race of people, they don't say, okay, we're coming to take you over. No. They do it subtly. They sell you a story. They'll sell you some clothes. They'll sell you some literature. They'll take this on. Because today, when you go to school, most of us go to school, we're learning, especially in England, we're learning about battles that they fought. We're not learning Black history or melanated history. We're not only learning about how they went over to certain islands and had to defend themselves, how they met with the Red Indians and the Red Indians were savages, how they met with peoples of Africa and they were savages, so they had to defend themselves. But then when we get to hear the real story is they went over as Anglo-Saxons, as the Europeans, whatever name you want, but they came over from this side, from the cold area. encountered people who were living according to their system, their order, their culture, and they took that, they manipulated and pretended to be friends, the same thing they do today. And then what they did is they usurp themselves, they insert themselves, saying we're all friends. It doesn't matter who you fall in love with. In fact, you can't even help who you fall in love with. Well, we're not trying to fall in love with the dog and the cat. We're not having children with them. So we can help who we're having. And that story is sold so that you can have children outside of yourself. So that you can produce these other children will have another mentality. It's what, as Sister Mokun just mentioned, as we're taught by them. So then when they get older, then they will say, well, Mum, Dad, why is that important? Why is it any, what it should be okay for me to have whoever I want? Because what's this all about? All we have to do is look at, I mean, even if, for example, now we use this one, if you look at the old singer, Madonna, how she went to, what country was it she went to, and she adopted these children. And one of the, sorry?
Malawi.
Thank you. Malawi. And one of the boy, David, I believe his name is, was taken. And if you look from his country, from the culture that they have to today, what is he doing? How is he dressing? Outside of himself, outside of the culture. It's almost what is going on here kind of issue. And this is what they will do. And then these children are now selling this as, okay, well, this is what it's about. So that they can go back and take that poison back into their lands and say, this is okay. No, it's so important to pass that on.
We're going to do one question each. Sister Zandi, you can jump onto that comment, and then I'm going to ask each of you one question before we wrap up. Go right ahead, Sister Zandi.
Thank you so much, Elder. I know you're running a tight shift today. All right.
So, I'm playing with you all day.
What Kahun Tefness said is exactly right. I wanted to just add, because you asked, and this is important. I learned this from our teacher. You asked about how we speak to our children and the words we used. And we always say, in Genesis, it says in the beginning was the word. But, Marimba Annie also speaks about this. And she talks about how the European, they limit everything. They make everything finite. So when we think about the word, something just being a word, it limits our understanding and the expansion of that expression. We say it was a being we named Tar, and he in the beginning he had a divine utterance. So he didn't have a word, he had a divine utterance. And in that divine utterance, it's not limited, it's expressed, it's an expression, and that expression expands. So when you're teaching your child, we can say to our child, you're a king. Okay, I'm a king. But if you don't know what king means, there's no context to it, that can be taken any way and just a person wanted to be an authority. But we say, you're king, you come from this line, here we learn this, here we have to do this. Expression is expanded and it's not limited to just a word. So even when we look at what's behind Kahun Tefna, becoming allows us to expand into our ancestral greatness. But if we just want to be, we don't know what we're truly being, so it keeps us limited to a finite perspective. So one is limitless. This is the African theology. One allows us to become limitless by the divine utterance and expression of our thinking. And the other one limits us to just a word, because that word can be manipulated and used in any way. And this is why they can manipulate what they say. One day it can mean this, the next day it can mean that. But when you have an expression of a divine word, it is covered from every angle, every perspective, so we are clear on what that means. So when we speak to our children, they won't go out into the world and be manipulated. Well, your mom said you were this, but this is what it really means. No. My mom didn't just give me a word. My mom gave me an expression of who I am. She gave me an expression of my identity. She gave me expression of our thinking. She gave me an expression of our culture. And so nobody can come along and just manipulate that. A word can be manipulated, but expression cannot. Okay, I'm done. I'm sorry, Elder.
That's right. Yeah, because that self-naming allows us to create the parameters around what that word means. We're taught in the Holy Church that words have a rate, speed, they have a frequency, they have a vibration. Words can, when they enter the eardrum and they vibrate, it can emit a certain emotional response. So words have weight, words have meaning. So those sounds that we give to the children can resonate with them, especially when we are clearly defining the parameters of those words, as the good sister just told us. Thank you so much for that. Now, I want to ask Sister Shan. The last thing I'm going to ask you, Sister Shan.
Yes.
What is a principle every mother must reclaim starting today? Whether she has children of her own or she is in a motherly role, what is a principle? What is a principle that a mother can reclaim? It's just one principle. So if the ladies were to go home tonight, what is one principle they should look to add to their life as we start to become like those mothers of Exodus and those mothers of those great liberation fighters that we talked about earlier?
Okay, I am going to go to a passage. Original books of the Bible, verse 191, sorry, page 191, verse 8 for me.
Okay.
Oh,
This
humanity
is
cosmic
the
harmony
African
achieved by
version.
living correctly. And that would be my one thing, for them to live correctly. Practice in private what they advocate publicly, because children watch what you do. They never listen to what you say the majority of the time. And when things happen, they will bring that back to you. You told me this, but you did this.
Right.
Okay? And observing all of, for me, atonism, our rights, our rituals, precepts, laws, commandments, and principles as I work towards reaching the state of atonement and balancing out all aspects of my life. Be an example.
Thank you so much for that. Sister McClendon, how can mothers guard their children's minds from psychological oppression, misinformation, from self-destructive information, the media, the internet? How can mothers protect the minds of their children?
Good question. It starts with what they are teaching them. You spoke about the words that are spoken to our children. Sister Zandi spoke about the expression of those words. It's what we are teaching them, it's what they see in the home first, because those things will last. We have to make sure that we are reinforcing our way of life, our culture. We have to show them in real time, age appropriately, of course, but we have to show them real time what's happening and allow them to see what is going on outside of who we are and what we do and why we do what we do.
Thank you so much. Crown Chapman, we are taught in the Holy Catholic Church that spirit is personality. We are taught that the physical body is the spiritual body. What role is spirituality in the raising of a liberated child? What role does spirituality play?
What role does spirituality play? The role that the spirituality plays is to keep us intact with Most High Heavenly One and Nere. It also keeps us intact with Ancestor. Spirituality, if we're looking at spirituality, body spirituality, and if we use that word, if we use that saying, personality. It keeps us in line with who we are. It keeps us in line with or connects us to our ancestors, spiritually, physically, mentally, emotionally, especially through our doctrine, especially through our spirituality, because it's a way of living, it's a way of producing, it's a way of making sure that each morning when we get up, we're doing our sealers and we're doing our supplications and we're eating and we're fasting and we're bringing all of that. So it plays an important role in order to make sure that those roles are kept in line, as you asked the question to Sister Mukunda, like how important or is that, or how do we do that? So this, and if any woman or any mother has children and doesn't know where to start, then it's almost like, let's seek out people who are, or church who are, company who are doing those same things. I'm not sure how to do it, but I know that through a friend of a friend, I'm actually listening to these women on screen. So where can I go to learn that? Where can I go to bring that forward? Understanding what the spirituality is, so that you can learn it, so then you can teach your children. You with me? Because we have to make sure that we're clear on what we're learning in order to give them that spirituality, because it's also misconceived as well. As some people say, there is no spirituality, or there an African spirituality, or we have to first get clear. And that's why the Holy Coptic Church of the Black Messiah, we're teaching that as a teaching church. That's why we talk about that. We have real conversations, and we speak about the language. So you can really get an idea of, well, what is spirituality to us as a people? And then we input that back in so that we can continue, through our ancestors' work, through the Most High Heavenly One, and have that in place in the home, so they can permeate through the children who can also live that as well.
Yeah, we're not standing on the sides looking at the heavens spirit to come. We're going to practice that spirituality in our homes and help to shape the personality of the home. Thank you for that.
Absolutely. That's right.
Last thing is Zandi, and then I'm going to ask everyone to be in a call and response. But I want to give the last word to Sister Zandi. Sister Zandi, what legacy are you intentionally building through your womb, your words, and your work? To the children, your words, and your work. What legacy are you intentionally building with this concept in mind, our topic?
When we speak about legacy, I first want to start off with this, Elder. Because we understand the state of consciousness that we are currently in, right? Before we jump to legacy and creating this great name, we have to become this great name. So from our children, and it goes back to what you asked, I have mine here, 1 second, baby. What you asked Tefna, right? Is that we have to understand to teach our children their identity. That's legacy, because once our children once we know who we are, the legacy begins. But as long as we're living in someone else's image, Book of Revelations, and someone else's likeness, we will never be ourselves. So it first comes with breaking the psychological hold over self. We have a hold on us that has been placed on our minds, that has been placed on our bodies. You asked about spirituality, and you asked specifically about the body being a spiritual world. Well, first we have to teach our children the sacredness, and we have to understand for ourselves the sacredness of that world. What is the body? What is the reproductive organs? We can't just know how to let people in and out of it, but what is it? What does it do? What's the reproductive organs of the male, of the female? And the importance of knowing self, because if you know self, when you stand in front of the mirror, you won't be in competition with that image. Vasesh spoke about this. Being in competition with the image in the mirror is because of the psychological hold that was placed on ourselves. The fairy tale, they put us in front of the mirror. And then they gave you the filters, and they gave us Instagram, and they gave us Facebook. So now we're competing with the mirror, trying to make ourselves become something that we're not. But once we change our minds and come from an African theological perspective, from the original books of the Bible and the original teaching, it shifts our perspective of ourself, our identity. So we are understanding that the mind accompanies the image. There is no image without having the intellect of the mind, because once that perception shifts, we won't be in competition with the mirror. We will complete the mirror with our intellect. We will complete the image instead of competing with the image. But because we were given the false identity, and because we were given the fairy tale, and because we were given miseducation, the best thing we can do for ourselves as mothers is educate ourselves. Know thyself is first. So once we educate ourselves, we can properly educate the next generation. That is the womb. But as long as I'm letting anybody in and out my womb, I'm already miseducated. I'm already degrading the womb before the child comes out. You asked about when a child is when we're speaking to a child, it's not just when they're in the belly, but when we're copulating with the person, what's being said. Are we allowing that man to pour life into us? The right kind of man will copulate with you and talk about building a future. The wrong kind of man will copulate with you and call you bees and call you hoes, already shaping the womb and already entering the womb with toxic, we like to call it toxic today, right? Degrading words that's already shaping the mentality and the future generations. So when you ask that question, we jump to legacy, and but first, before we get to the legacy, let's know who we are. We won't have a legacy without identity. Identity first, then legacy. If not, we'll be seeking the wrong success and the wrong legacy. And that's what we're doing today. We think success is the cars and the clothes and the dress and that's legacy. And I made it and I became, and now it's future generations, but it's future generations of miseducated women and men. It's future generations of the wrong type of personalities that's been whitewashed, that's been brain dirtied, not brainwashed, but brain dirty by Hellenistic and white supremacy thinking. And so if Christ had a consciousness, we have to seek the consciousness of Christ. It speaks about in 2 Corinthians, was the 1 Corinthians. It speaks about the consciousness of Christ. So we have to seek that consciousness, because that consciousness is what we're passing to our children to create that identity. That identity is directly connected to culture. But if we're not cultivating that environment properly, we'll be still sitting here 10 years from now talking about it's the ladies of conference 2020, whatever, 2030, and we still having the same discussion.
Real clear. Yeah, I mean, right. So, sister, thank you. You're right, because the knowing thyself, that is the legacy, right? That is the foundation of the legacy, and it reshapes the interpretation and gives it a new meaning. You've self-defined. We have named ourselves in this conference so far tonight. So I want to thank each of you. You sisters have been amazing. And I want everyone to open their mics. I want you to join me. And first of all, giving these wonderful sisters a round of applause for the wealth of information they gave us. And then I want you to participate with me in a call and response. But let's give them a round of applause first. Everybody, come on. Give them some recognition. These sisters have been amazing. Thank you so much. And so I want you to join with me. I'm going to say the call, and I will say the response, and you repeat after me. Who shapes the future? Your response, the woman. Who shapes the future?
The woman.
The woman.
The woman.
Where does liberation begin? You stay in the womb. Where does liberation begin?
In the womb.
What is the role of the mother? You say to build a nation. What is the role of the mother?
To build a
nation.
Thank you so much for being with us. Stay tuned for the next segment. Namaste.
Namaste.
Namaste. Namaste.
Searching your toes, searching your eyes for your heart. Don't think you know too well. Magnets attract and repel. You should feel heaven and earth in connection. Display her fine points in your thoughts. Don't think her clock can tell if pretending that all is well, just from her feeling, just from her feeling, just from her feeling, from her feeling. She still hugs your insecurity, and she is patient with your paranoid mind. Don't think you know too well. Magnets attract and repel. Lying so smooth and true, there's nothing faint about the things you deny. Don't think you know too well. Magnets attract and repel. Shouldn't have to be mental chess and scheming. Rude boy, you shouldn't have to be. Will it a double cross and double dealing? And it shouldn't have to be. Will it a prosecution and appealing? Biological accuracy should get you every time from the feeling. Just from her feeling. Just from her feeling. Her clock just don't tell time. Her clock just tell the time. Her clock tell dimension. Her clock tell single or double mind. Emotional distance, just from her feet.
Oh my goodness. My talk is about acknowledge the womb she came from and words, which was Grandma Fantasy. Oh my goodness. I don't know the names after. It doesn't matter because I know that a womb inside of a womb, inside of a womb, inside of a womb, inside of a womb, I don't have to know. But I know right here because I have a womb and they're all connected. So I want to invite you to take a moment to think about the wombs that manifested you. I want you to take a moment to think about the person who took time and energy, may not have made it to 9 months, may not have pushed you out through that powerful canal, right? May have got a C-section. You might have come early, but she did that. And here you sit. Powerful stuff. So I acknowledge that. And I want to also say that my talk is about something that is painful, but I'm going to invite you not to feel sorry for me. There is nothing to feel sorry for because I'm operating from my purpose. So my talk is partly about my daughter, Shimani Makiba Gibson, who passed away at age 30 due to a birth-related pulmonary embolism. Big word for a blood clot, right? She passed away 14 days after giving birth to my grandson, Kari. And her baby girl was 2 years old when her mother transitioned. So when crowds are like, oh, I'm like, wait, that's not the end. My daughter lived 11,248 days. And that day of death does not have the final word. This talk is about wombs and words because they create worlds. This talk is about the inequity that exists. In the United States, Black women are 3 to 4 times more likely to die doing the most natural thing they could ever do, which is bring new life into the world. What is that about? And because my talk is about words, I'm going to tell you straight talk. It's about racism, structural. It's about racism, systemic. It's about white supremacy culture. Oh my goodness. My talk is about wombs and words. Oh my goodness.
Something's not right. Well, for me, I first heard about my fibroids when I was pregnant with my daughter, Noelle, who is now 25. And what I remember is when the doctor told me that I had a fibroid, I was like, oh my God, what's that? What's happening? She really was like, really played it down like it was something that I wouldn't really have to worry about in the future.
And it was small at the time.
It was like the size of a grape. She's like, oh, it's the size of a grape. The baby's fine. You're going to be fine. And I never thought about it again. And what I didn't know is that they would continue to grow over the years and be, eventually cause me all the different issues that comes with fibroids.
But did you have was your pregnancy painful?
Yeah.
Oh,
as to be expected. Yeah.
And that came
I had
from
all
fibroids?
No. That had nothing to do with the fibroids.
Oh, really?
That was just the first time I heard of a fibroid.
Oh.
I didn't know what it was. I'd never, heard of it before then. So that was just my first time, having that conversation.
And how about for you?
I was actually going through IVF treatments, and that's when I found out that I had fibroids. I've always had the very worst periods. I would have to call out of school because I couldn't go to school because I would have crazy cramps. So I had no idea. Come to find out, when I found out about my fibroids, my mother had gone through it. I have 4 sisters and a mother, and they all have gone through it. And no one said, "Hi, I'm your mother. I had fibroids," and so you'll probably have them too.
No one was talking about
Yeah.
it.
And how does that normalization impact and cause us a delayed reaction to something? Because if your sisters have heavy periods and your mother has a heavy period and you just think, oh, that's just what happens.
Yeah, no, and that is a common story. I hear this a lot from my patients where they're saying, you know what, actually, Auntie had a surgery way back in the days and we don't know why. We didn't talk about it. We didn't have a discussion. That is common found. Or my mom said, just pack an extra pair of clothes, you'll be fine. And normalize the abnormal cycle. And so they're delayed to diagnosis, they're delayed to treatment. It's common.
And so what is a fibroid? And do we have a sense of where they come from?
Absolutely know where they come from. Unfortunately, there's not a lot that we can do about it, though. Fibroids are tumors that grow from the muscle of the uterus, so every single woman can have them, and it affects 70% of women.
I was going to say 70%.
Yeah, 80 to 90% of Black women are affected by fibroids. And it's simply, you just have to have a uterus and you have to have hormones.
But why Black women 3 times more likely than a white woman?
Yeah, a lot goes into that. So we know now that there's genetics that go into it. There definitely is a hereditary component for everyone. And then for us specifically, our melanin blocks vitamin D. And vitamin D is associated with fibroid growth. So it's very multifactorial why Black women, some of it will say it's our diets, it's the things that we eat, it's the perm that we permed our hair with for decades that was affecting the way our hormones treat our entire body, including our uterus and the fibroid.
Objective is to make sure that you're leaving out knowledgeable, confident, and with some things that'll make you say,
Amira Morris will never forget the first time she gave birth. She was in labor at a hospital, and she was told by a doctor that she had hypertension. They suggested that having high blood pressure would put the birthing process at risk, so they recommended an induction.
When they induced me, it took a while for my water to break, so they broke it for me, which was even more painful. Then they gave me Pitocin to induce the labor because the baby wasn't ready to come because you're forcing him to get here. So everything was just forced. It was painful.
The doctors also recommended an epidural. Amira initially turned it down until her contractions became unbearable. But even that intervention couldn't alleviate the pain completely, and she didn't feel supported by the medical team.
I felt like I was being annoying to them, just trying to deal with the pain because at first I didn't want to have an epidural. I also didn't have a birthing plan, so by the time I got the epidural, because the doctors kept coming in and say, I need to get it, you need to get the epidural. If you're yelling and being in pain, this will at least you'll be able to get some rest.
She says that the healthcare providers, most of them white, told her to push through the pain.
Nobody was nice. She was trying her best to keep me calm, but I also know that when you're probably working on a little bit of hours of sleep and you're delivering babies all day long, that you may be overwhelmed or tired and stuff, and sometimes people don't realize how that may be projecting on a person that's scared. This is my first time having a baby.
Oxytocin is a hormone that takes place, and oxytocin is basically a love hormone, a feel-good hormone, and it just disperses if you are in a good mood.
I don't feel like Black women's voices are always heard. I feel like in order for our voices to be heard, it has to be loud or it has to be rude or disrespectful for somebody to finally listen. I just felt like it's just certain doctors that just care more about what they do. If you see anybody in pain as a person, like you want to help, like you want to try to do something to make them feel better, you wouldn't treat them like they're being annoying or they're getting on your nerves or you don't feel like hearing this or you'll be fine. So I don't know exactly what I could say to make you really understand the Black woman's experience when giving birth, especially since a lot of people make it seem like a lot of Black women are alone when they give birth.
Amira says the experience took a toll on her, and she wished she had more Black healthcare providers present. But one thing was now certain: finding someone who could validate her experiences was important. Last year, she and her boyfriend Khalif were expecting a new baby, a girl. Amira decided that she wanted to give birth with fewer medical interventions this time around. She began looking for a doula that could help, but not just any doula, a black doula.
I think I wrote Philly Black Doulas, and Christine came up. And when I went to her Instagram, I seen 2 mutual friends that we had, and I had texted them like, "Do you know this lady? It's like she's a doula," and I wanted some type of recommendation.
Amira wasted no time signing up for classes, but she was initially shy among her company. Her first day was an adjustment.
So I was a little lonely because it was nice to see so many fathers also in there with the mothers of their children being supportive, like helping them with the yoga balls, breathing. Like it's such a family environment. I feel like that's the only thing that was.
Who gave life from now to the future sky? Who raised names? Her children rise, her story flies. No book, no preacher, no crown, no king can erase the truth she brings. Honor the mother, honor the flame. Without her breath, we'd have no name. Say it loud, let the world reclaim. The black womb holds the claim. The black womb is power. Civilizations rise. Adam's rib can't make no lie. It's just another lie.
We're back. Thank you for joining us here at the Women of Purpose, Ladies of Purpose, Christ Consciousness Conference 2026. We have sisters and brothers from all around the world witnessing this great moment, this great event. This year's theme is Mothers of Melanated Liberation, speaking about the womb of liberation. We're moving into the third session for this evening. The Revolutionary Christ, raising children who refuse to bow to empire. The moderator and interviewer will be Dr. Dias Tucker, and he will be speaking to Sister Shabria, and I'm going to give her husband's last name and start trouble. Freeman. I'm not going to get in trouble this evening, but I'm going to be. But Sister Shabria is going to be talking this evening and answering these questions for Niswa, as we know her affectionately. Yumi Nafir, Mrs. Forbes, out of Nassau, Bahamas. Happy Earth Day, by the way, Umi. Sister Venus Tate will also be joining us from Trinidad and Tobago, and Dr. Nicole Ford will be coming in as well to this conversation. Dr. Tucker, please take us away, my brother.
Thank you. I'd like to welcome everyone again to this session. This session is the Revolutionary Christ, raising children who refuse to bow to empire. We're going to get started with understanding the message that the Revolutionary Christ was bringing. And we're going to jump right to it. We're going to look at a verse in Luke. We're going to look at Luke chapter 4, verse 18. And this is a declaration of liberation. I'll actually read the verse for you, and we'll get the questions and responses started based on this declaration of liberation. This declaration is one of the clearest statements of the mission of Yeshua Karas, the Revolutionary Christ. So Luke 4:18, it says, "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he has anointed me to preach the gospel to the poor. He has sent me to heal the brokenhearted, to preach deliverance to the captives, and recovering of sight to the blind, to set at liberty them that are bruised." So in this statement, how each one of the panelists is going to respond to this question. The first one will give a response from an individual level, and that will be Sister Umi. And if you need me to restate the question at any point, just let me know. So the first question is for Sister Umi. What can you do to ensure social transformation takes place on an individual level. And when we're talking about social transformation, we're talking about this particular verse where it's describing a social transformation in which the oppressed experience freedom and justice. So we're looking at Luke 4:18, where it's talking about social transformation. So first part of the question is, how can you ensure this social transformation takes place on an individual level? Sister Umi.
Namaste.
Namaste.
To ensure that it takes place on an individual level.
Yes, with you. Know thyself.
I would have to be an example for that person to follow. I would have to embrace the African-centered system of truth, balance, order, and justice. I would have to speak words of affirmations. It says that words are living forces. It could be death or life. So I would have to instruct the child to follow the African system of Ma'at, whereby she will be able to affirm out loud daily the virtues, the consciousness that she is peaceful, respectful, and that she offer genuine words to others. The other ones can help me with the rest.
Okay, no problem. Thank you, Sister Umi. The second part of the question is for Sister Shabria. Sister Shabria, how can you ensure that this social transformation that's spoken about in Luke 14:18, where it's describing a social transformation in which the oppressed experience freedom and justice, how do you ensure that this transformation takes place in the children?
Namaste, everyone, and thank you for having us here. The first step, of course, like you said earlier, it is to know thyself, to know ourselves, to start that transformation. Because if you don't know yourself, you cannot teach your children. And much what a lot of the sisters previously have said, and what this movement today is about, liberation of the womb, we have to first begin the instruction in a home and actually know what it is that we're teaching the children. We have to, let me see how I'm gonna put this. We have to teach our children the truth and the realities in the world. You know, we have to be honest with them, teach them how to be humble. We have to, teach them about the different systems in the world in which they are going to be a part of, in which they have to know knowledge of, to prevent them from engaging or being a part of what we have been in the programming that we have been done. As a mother myself, and as everyone here today, we are all mothers in one way or another. We are all teaching our children the correct upbringing. We're teaching them the correct knowledge. We're teaching them discipline. And we are also being disciplined ourselves. We are teaching them how to give back. I believe in Luke 4:18, I believe part of what you said was preaching gospel to the poor. And we have to teach them, just because you have something that someone else don't have, don't necessarily make you better than them. We teach them to lend a hand. I am because you are, in that manner. I think that's my.
Sister Venus, this social transformation, we're looking at this social transformation in which the oppressed experience freedom and justice. How do we make sure that this social transformation takes place within our immediate families and extended families? We talked about it on an individual level. We talked about it with the children. Now, how do we extend that to our extended family?
Namaste, everyone.
Namaste.
Namaste. I am so sorry. If you can repeat the question, please.
Oh, no problem. Absolutely. Yeah. We're coming from Luke chapter 4, verse 18, where we're talking about the declaration of liberation. And this is describing a social transformation in which the oppressed experience freedom and justice. I'll read the verse again. The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he has anointed me to preach the gospel to the poor. He has sent me to heal the brokenhearted, to preach deliverance to the captives, and recovering of sight to the blind, to set at liberty them that are bruised. How is this transformation? This is talking about a social transformation.
Yes.
All right. It's also found in Isaiah chapter 61, verse 1. So how would you extend or make sure that this social transformation is happening with yourself, your family members, and your extended family members?
One.
How would you promote this doctrine?
First of all, I have to discipline. What happens is that I have to discipline myself. Mm-hmm. And to discipline myself, meaning that I have to read. I have to become involved in activities that promote liberation, promotes knowledge of self and kind. When this is done, and I'm speaking to others in my family, I explain to them what liberation is, why we have to be a people of consciousness, why we have to be informed of what is happening in the world. And when I'm speaking to them, I always remember that this is not a me thing, because sometimes we go into the direction of the me thing, but to understand that we are one soul in different bodies. So when I'm speaking to them, I'm speaking to them from that perspective, so that my words will resonate because they can see it. Television is there, social media is there, the news media is there, and they can see what is happening to us as a people. So when I'm speaking, I make sure that I'm informed first, so that the direction that I'm going is not of something that is falsified, but something that they could actually look at and said, okay, this is what she means. Because they do come to me and they say, you know, it might be my aunt, it might be my uncle, they'll say, you know, I thought you were speaking crazy, but I saw this and this and this the other day. You understand? So I'm always reading, I'm always looking, I'm involved in it in such a way that my expression of information is in reality.
Okay, thank you. And the last part of the question is on an organizational level for Dr. Ford. So as an organization, or for families or mothers that want to raise a child that refuses to bow to empire, what can be done on an organizational level to make sure that we do what's needed as an organization to reach these families and these people in need, so that we can actually begin to raise children who refuse to bow to empire?
Superman, can I be heard? Just want to
Yes.
make sure. Okay. First, thank you for asking that question, Dr. Tucker. It's a really great question. I want to make sure that feedback's not from me. Okay. So I would say number one, let us take it all the way back in the day when the churches were community hubs in our neighborhoods. And if you ever look at, like, for example, in the South here in America, churches not only would go ahead and have Sunday service, churches would be a place of education and learning, right? They would have schools, freedom schools. You can look that up. They would be actively involved in whatever was going on in the community, right? You can look that up. You can see that they will be actively involved in feeding the neighborhood, feeding the homeless, being involved with the things that mothers needed. We can all look those things up. So, one thing that we have to realize is that organizations are constantly around us. The issue is we have to want better. And in order to make those social transformations that you're talking about, the greatest, most powerful organ that we have is our brain. And so Revelations, right? Revelations often talks about blessed is the person who reads. I want to say it's Revelations 1:3. I'm up there like I'm trying to guess. Social media. If possible, can you pull up um how reading, right? If possible, can you please pull up how reading is needed to transform the brain? How reading is needed to transform the brain.
You also
Because in order to get
Revelation 1:3 is blessed is he that readeth, and that they hear the words of this prophecy and keep those things which are written therein, for the time is at hand. So you are correct. Revelations 1:3. Sorry to interrupt you.
Thank you. So it's the reading, right? And so that social transformation that we need, these are things that Joshua, the Revolutionary Crest, he would talk about in John 8:42. I'm working on my Bible quotes. John 8:42, he would talk about, like, I did not come on my own. And so when you're looking at these organizations can look back at past successes that worked for us and we can still implement, right? So John Henry Clark used to be like, we got to read. And so if you're looking here on the screen, it says reading transforms the brain by enhancing neuroplasticity, strengthening white matter connectivity, and activating complex neural networks, essentially rewiring the brain for better cognition and empathy. It acts as a mental workout that improves connectivity in the left temporal lobe and sensory motor regions, boosting memory and critical thinking while slowing cognitive decline. So this is the second thing. You have to be part of a teaching church. A church that's not just going to preach at you, but a church that's going to say, hey, you with the smartphone, use that smartphone to be smart. Let's look up some things. Because this social transformation is something that can happen in real time, whether it's at an individual level, a family level, at an organizational level. But at the end of the day, we have to want more and we have to start becoming that example of ask the question, we can do it. So that's what I would say, Dr. Tucker.
Okay, very good. Something we can do in real time.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for that. Our next question. We're going to talk about the revolutionary Christ being a messenger calling people back to righteousness and justice within their communities. And the revolutionary Christ teaching a message that actually disrupts systems of injustice. So, with that being said, if the message of the revolutionary Christ is about liberation, and we look at institutions and we want to look at why these institutions may emphasize obedience to unjust systems rather than obedience? Sir, why have institutions emphasized obedience to unjust systems rather than resistance? And how we are affected by this today. So why is resistance to unjust systems not promoted for us? Why do we have to obey unjust systems? Sister Shabria, you can get us started with that.
And the pool, sis. The water's fine.
Why have many institutions historically emphasized obedience to unjust systems rather than resistance?
Okay. Why have many institutions historically emphasized obedience to unjust systems?
Yes, we can look at the churches.
Right.
We can look
Yes.
at churches, what they teach in churches. They teach us
Right.
to obey and follow law.
Mhm.
In the public school systems, they promoting critical race theory where they're changing
Mhm.
history. And,
Yeah.
that they don't really want us to know what happened. They don't want us to know the true story. And those
Mhm.
that actually teach the truth are labeled as Black identity extremists and
Mhm.
these labels. So why does this happen?
So I'm gonna first start off by saying that it happens because of racism, white supremacy. And that's something that we have been taught here time and time again, how that impacts us every single day. If they're taking away your knowledge, they're taking away your books, if they're taking away anything that identifies you with yourself, your past, your history, your culture, your heritage, what does that do to you? I believe Dr. Ford, she just brought up the importance of your brain. And we talked about neuroplasticity, and we are talking about the mind itself. And we're talking about these children. Think about when you was a child, especially me, for instance, when I was growing up, I didn't know about the Marcus Garveys. I knew about Martin Luther King and Malcolm X and Rosa Parks, but that's as far as my knowledge went. So my perspective on the world itself was very limited until I became an atonist. So they restrict you, they limit your power, they limit your potential, and that's what racism, white supremacy is all about. If you know the power that you have within yourself, you're going to be able to reach heights that they cannot reach. You're going to be able to teach your children and those around you, and you're going to be able to surround yourself in these environments that can achieve liberation. You can go start your schools, you can go to the school, start your churches. As you see the ladies on the stream, the ones that have been before us and the ones that's going to come on after us, they're all teachers in one way or another. Everyone up here teaches, and they've been on these platforms, and we're spreading the word. We aren't refined or confined, rather, by racism, white supremacy. We already know what it is. We already begun, a lot of us, identifying who we are, and a lot of us know who we are. We know where we come from. We know our grandfathers. We know all the great deeds that everyone else have done with us. But if they reshape everything around us, they have that power to control our food, our finances, our economics, our law, our politics. We are very, very limited, and that's what they want. And I'm gonna let my sister, she looked like she was ready to go on and press that button, like, no, sis, I got this. The water is fine. I gotta heat it up for you. I'm gonna let you keep it going.
Anyone else like to add?
We will. Go ahead, Sister Venus. I just wanted to make sure she was talking about you. No, but seriously, I'll jump in if I can, Dr. Tucker, to tag on to what you were saying, Sister Shabria. W- the system works well for those who designed it.
Yes. Obedience.
Right. So one of the keys is if we have to create our own narrative, right? And so when we look at what the system produces and how the system works, I was recently watching something on TV. I wanted to know, it's a 30-second blurb, right? Because I was thinking about how racism, white supremacy works, right? And with the way that it works, right? In order to liberate our children, a melanated mother was on the screen, mother must read, right? So A lot of times we're reading, a lot of times we're looking at news articles, reading, listening to the radio. We're reading so much, we're even reading the back of water bottles, like, where's the source of this water? Right? And so we have to understand how this source works. So I would like to share something with you all to just kind of understand how this unjust system, right, kind of works. And there was this program, and it's coming up on my screen, and it just came out, and it's called White Fear, right? And I'm going to share it real quick. Now, I see my screen?
Yes, we can see it, sis.
I'm going to push play.
Fear is the best motivator.
When Mexico sends its people,
they're invading, they're murdering, they're raping.
There is now a white fear industrial complex.
Mexican criminals, chaos in the streets,
tapping into white grievance and anxiety, and then exploiting and creating more and more of it. This is strategic racism.
And when you're scared, you fight back.
Get the hell out of my neighborhood!
Wanted everybody to see that because the system is working exactly how it's supposed to work. And it is working in a way where it is stroking fear in certain people and in other people too, both non-melanated and melanated people. And so it's very important during this time, during this latter day. This is why it's important for people, especially melanated folks, to come together and work together in unity, because racism is back. It is back, full throttle. It's like a kid running through the house naked. It is here. Thank you, Dr. Tucker.
Thank you. Now, let's keep in mind the title of this session, The Revolutionary Christ and Raising Children Who Refuse to Bow to Empire. So we're going to look at teaching children to recognize systems of power. So how can a family cultivate awareness of social structures and power dynamics to raise a generation of liberators? How can we ensure that our children know the power structures, where the power lies, what cultures have the dominance of power, what embracing your true identity, the power that holds. So the question, how can a family cultivate awareness of social structures and power dynamics to raise a generation of liberators? We start with Sister Umi.
Okay. With the present system of white supremacy, they are trying to maintain power.
Mm-hmm.
And in Daniel 2, there was the statue, Nebuchadnezzar, that were world powers. And presently, we are down to the divided kingdom, or empire, that is mixed with iron mixed with clay. And how do we teach the children to recognize empire? Is that the question?
Yes, the question is, how can a family cultivate awareness? How can you make the family or ensure that the family is aware of current power structures that exist? How You're teaching them the truth about what exists, what democracy means, what republic and democratic, what it really means. Does it really work for the people? How can you ensure that your family and your children know the truth about how democracy really works? You
Okay.
want to ensure that they know and understand this power structure so they are not out protesting as a Democrat, like No Kings march and protesting and getting absolutely nothing done, because we understand that that system does not work for us.
Okay. Well, they would have to get back to the African-centered system and be able to compare it with the present system that is in place, with law, culture, economics, spirituality, and community, and see how we could be able to work together as community to build future generations.
Okay, very good. Thank you for that. One of our BBs, Dr. Frances Cress Wilson, she argued that systems of racial domination depended heavily on psychological conditioning. So we're talking about psychological conditioning. So how can a mother ensure that her family and children do not internalize subordinate positions as being natural or inevitable? An example would be, we've all heard Black people, the churchgoers, when they make reference to prophecy. And they say that because it's written in the Bible and because it has been prophesied that Black people have to go through it because it's prophecy. It's in the Bible that certain groups of people suffer. So Black people should be suffering. So, question: how can a mother ensure that her family and children do not internalize subordinate positions as being natural or inevitable? What must she do for that family to make sure that they are not internalizing these subordinate positions as something that God has caused to happen to them? Sister Venus.
Master,
Master.
I was so hoping you'd ask me this question. I was so hoping, because I have to start off with a story. I was so hoping. Now, when we speak about not allowing our children to internalize being subordinate, or sorry, what's the word?
Internalize subordinate.
Internalizing.
Yes.
Your children have to see you in action.
Okay.
You. Because you are the first teacher. You're the one that they're watching. You're the one that they keep questioning. So my story, I remembered. The teacher called me into the office and told me that my son was not doing his homework. I said, what do you mean he's not doing his homework? His homework is there. Well, what I mean is you're doing the homework for him. I said, really? I said, Mom, well, normally when I start off with Mom in that tone, there's problems. I said, you did not correct the work. I am telling you that I did not do the work. And I told you that over the phone before I reached here. And I proceed to tell this lady perfectly in perfect English that she could understand. That you do not, and what she did, let me tell you what she did. She first told my son that he did not do his homework, that his mommy did the homework. So we had a ABC, EFG conversation with him in the room. And when we finished, and I took him and I left the school, I was telling him, you don't make nobody. You don't. You heard what I said? And it was like a conversation showing him that you don't settle for things just because somebody has an authority over you. And I went up against the education system, so I could give you many stories. Until I got, and I had to say this, until I got a teacher in a private institution who worked with me to get, because Bassa's predecessor had in one of his books that children learn by rote. And in my mind, at the time I didn't have much knowledge, but in my mind, it says that I cannot have a conversation with my child because he already internalized everything the teacher would have told him and he would not move. So I had to move him from that particular school. I had to get a teacher to work with me because I know what I wanted. I wanted a child that was upright. I wanted a child that would have been able to critically think in a world that does not allow it. I wanted him to be someone who could be noble in a world that will not tolerate it. So when I spoke to my child, I always say I had 3 educations to my child. I had the one that the school had, the one that, you know what I mean. I had my education based on scriptures, and then I had another education based on his relationship with me because I'm his first teacher. I did not want him to have anybody else coming in and taking that place. So we had conversations from since he was about 5, whether he knew it or not, whether he understood the words or not, right? So I was so glad you asked that question. You can go ahead now, because the stories are very, I'm trying to narrate the story, not so long, but I promise you, I had some stories to get him to where he is today.
Okay, Sister Shabria, the question: what role does the mother play in shaping the viewpoints of the children?
Namaste.
Namaste.
So as the mother is the first instructor, she has every role. She's the first role. You know, it starts actually when the child is in the womb, your thoughts when that child is developing inside of you, the music that you listen to, the foods that you eat, because you know food, it has hormones in it and all that relates directly to the child. If you eat healthy, if you're exercising healthy, then the child comes out more healthy. And then when that child comes out, it's the environment that you place that child in. Are you listening to jazz music, or are you listening to some raunchy, chaotic, you know, the music that we're not really going to give publicity to right now? Are you putting them in a good environment? Are you establishing a routine for them? Are you teaching your children about their grandparents and our BBs and our Babas, the Marcus Garveys, the Shahrazad's Ali's? Are you teaching your children about our way of life, or the way of life, of course, that you're a part of? Are you teaching them their place in this world? Are you showing them discipline and consistency? Are you showing them accountability? All of that matters. Are you showing them, okay, if you have this type of experience and you don't like the outcome, this is how you can go and do better? You know, I think oftentimes we just like, oh, well, you know, you messed up. Oh, well. No, you have to teach your child how to express themselves correctly, because if you don't, we're going to end up with some of the people that we're constantly talking about and showing our kids that you don't want to be that example of. You know, also, instructions. You when you're teaching a child, you yourself have to be taught. You know, for instance, myself, I love that we're giving stories because I have a lot of them. You know, with my child, I am teaching her as I am being taught. Everything has to be taught in a sequence. And I'm always asking, okay, well, what is the sequence that I now teach her? It starts from, okay, ABCs, the 1, 2, 3s. We're teaching your name, the meaning of your name. We're teaching you why you around our home, you see our guardian angelic host. That all shapes the child's world view. We're teaching them every aspect of their way of life. That's how you shape your child worldview. That's how you shape what they're going to become. You don't allow your child to just do whatever they want. I think today's time, that's what we are seeing a lot of people do. Well, our parents are too strict. No, they were strict for a reason. We didn't just have our child to just have a child. We had our child with a purpose, with intent, because our child, they will be children of the future. They'll be the future leaders. I think it was a song, the children are the future. They are truly the future, and if you don't shape that future to be the right way, we're just going to find ourselves back in slavery. And I know I don't want that for my children or my grandchildren or their children. So you have to make sure you're shaping their future by teaching them cultural awareness, teaching them their heritage, giving them the knowledge, teaching them the traditions we have. Here at the Holy Cup Church, we have rites, ritual, precepts. We have something for every little thing that you can name. Our children have to be brought up in that kind of way. We have to teach them about our BBs and Bibles, have to teach them and show them the words, teach them and let them read about the introduction, the autobiography of Malcolm X. We have the Shahrazad Ali books, the Black Man's Guide to Understanding the Black Woman, the Black Woman's Guide to Understanding the Black Man. We have all of these documents and these parchments, even the ones that Basesh wrote, especially those. We have to be able to teach those, question those pieces to the puzzles. We have every little thing to shape their worldview, but the moment that you drop the baton, you fail your children. So don't drop the baton. You shape their worldview by constantly being disciplined. You constantly continue to teach them and be that example. Master. Is he just low for me?
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
So,
we could hear you.
So with economic institutions influencing access to resources and opportunities, and educational systems determining which historical narratives receive emphasis, how can we ensure that our children learn to analyze power structures and develop an ability to navigate and challenge unjust systems? Remember, this session, we're talking about the revolutionary Christ, raising children who refuse to bow to empire. So how can we ensure our children learn to analyze power structures and develop an ability to navigate and challenge unjust systems? Dr. Ford.
Okay. The ability to challenge unjust systems. And you said economically, correct, Dr. Tucker? Was that, could you repeat the question one more time? You said economically?
With economic institutions influencing access to resources and opportunities, and how educational systems determine which historical narratives receive emphasis. What we learn in the schools. How can we ensure that our children learn to analyze power structures and develop the ability to navigate and challenge these unjust systems and refuse to bow to empire?
Well, it's a couple of things that you're saying. I just want to make sure I'm clear. One, Sister Sharia just had brought up a really great point, right? Which is when it comes to first understanding the BBs and Babas, right? And, those are the Coptic saints. And the great thing about understanding how the Holy Coptic Church, what we are, promoting, how we advocate and how we live is we have what's called Well Cell Web. And one of the letters E is for economics, right? And we look at it from one of the Babas, Neely Fuller. And so we have to have conversations about first how economics work, right? Be able to define and explain to our children what true education is, how economics work, etc. Then that list of BBs and Babas, right? The people, who are they? We got to make sure our children understand who are these great men and women and what they've done for us. One of the things that's on there is a man by the name of he's a Baba. His name is Dr. Amos Wilson. And he often talked about like the awakening the genius in Black children. And he would often, state, what is it that we must not be able to do or have in our character if the white man is to stay dominant? And he would specifically, just kind of go through the list of, hey, got to make you ignorant. You can't be able to read. I have to condition you. And he would show how this works with Pavlov's box, right? And so that is the first thing we have to understand, right? Is how the system, racism, white supremacy, how it works, and to be able to explain it in simple terms to our children, right? Because, back in the day, I don't want to say back in the day, a few years ago, they used to talk about these race talks, remember? And they would say, have these race talks with your children about kind of what was going on in the world. And now we can expand those race talks to say, hey, let's look at your book. Notice your school book. Do you notice any images that look like you? That's a race talk. Hey, look at this program. You notice it's not a lot of people that look like us. That's a race talk, right? So we can do it really simply by doing that, but then also being amongst each other to not only talk about what's currently happening, but also provide a counter narrative. So you have to demonstrate unity and cooperation so your child knows that there is something that's opposite of this. So if you have an economic structure that says, hey, we're not going to allow you, to purchase these types of foods. In Greenville, there's a brother by the name of Brother T. Brother T has eggs. And it's a little young lady named Maya. And so if Brother T is talking about, hey, have these eggs, purchase a plastic carton on Amazon. Hey, everybody, purchase our plastic cartons. Brother T, instead of purchasing it from the store, we're going to purchase it from you. Hi, Maya. Let's talk about, for us, by us, buying Black. We're going to go ahead. Brother T has eggs. We're going to go ahead and support and start buying our eggs for him in real time to show, hey, you don't have to automatically just go with the flow of what's being done. So part of not bowing down to these unjust systems is realizing as melanated mothers that we are opposite of the system. We're opposite spiritually, we're opposite in nature, we're opposite in behaviors, we're opposite in ideals, we're opposite in faith. But our children have to see it in real time. So we have to constantly show cooperation, constantly show that positivity, constantly show that power and economics work in everything that we do. Does that make sense?
It makes sense. And I'm glad you mentioned real time because that's going to
You're
lead us.
kind of low, Dr. Tucker, or is it just me?
I'm,
There you go.
all right. So you mentioned real time.
Yes.
So this next question is going to deal with just that. With Dr. Ford, you and Sister Shabria have participated in Just Walk Atlanta over the years. And you've seen the neighborhood, you've seen the environment, you've talked to the parents, you've seen the children. Okay? So this next question, how do we begin to shift the mindset of unconscious females in works to reuniting the Black family towards mental, spiritual, emotional, and physical balance so that those teenage children, those preteens, those teenagers can also become children that refuse to bow to empire. So what you witnessed
Mhm.
What are some of the steps that we can take to start to educate that community, to move those kids more so towards a mindset of awareness of their situations so that they become mindful of what they need to do in order to better their situation?
There is a baby by the name of Dorothy Height. And she was an advocate for children. She used to do a program, um, social media, if you can look it up, called Save the Children, right? And she was really concerned about the future of African American children, what was happening to them. And in the process of it, she would often talk about like what young people were up against, right? And she would say, like we make a lot of excuses for certain behaviors and certain things that we see. And she would say, young people are just like us. She was just like, they want attention, just like we wanted attention.
Mhm.
And the issue is, but they're not being taught about the other types of attention. And when you're living in a system where you are Hellenized, especially as a female, you don't realize that there is a thing called mind is the motivator, activator. Mind is the activator, sex is the motivator, right? And that unconsciously or consciously, right? We can be activate our interests into boys, activate our interests into music, activate our interests into certain clothing style, right or wrong, it can be activated. And we live in a society that says, hey, see me, touch me, look at me. Second Timothy's, I want to say Second Timothy's, lovers of themselves. Lovers of themselves. Help me out, somebody. My mind just went blank. But Second Timothy's, I want to say 3:15. It talks about people will be lovers of
Three,
themselves.
five.
Thank you. 3:5 talks about people being lovers of themselves. And we living in that time where people are lovers of themselves. Everybody's on a selfie. Everything is very bodied up. Everything is very I gotta look a certain way. It's all about vanity. It's all about look. It's all about maintaining the pretty box on the outside, not caring about what's being done on the inside. So the importance of Just Walk, one, is it helps us to slowly start to have conversations to change the environment, to be able to have access with not only the kids, but the parents, for them to see a different alternative because the world is constantly changing. And so when we're dealing with young people and they're seeing a good different example and they're coming out on the track like, oh man, this is something positive, they're not used to it because if you're constantly being bombarded with negative things, of course you're going to want to lean into those things, if that makes sense. So it's important for us, especially in this generation, to help not just the children by having conversations and helping to change their environment. Hey, drink a little water. Hey, this is why you need to just walk. Hey, what's your major? Hey, there's some scholarships. You know what? We're adding a scholarship program. You know anybody that's literally talking to the parents? Hey, want to invite you to this event. Hey, we at Holy Cooked Church. Hey, did y'all see what was going on in the news? Start having real conversations because it's not just about the teens, they're making their decision, but it's about helping parents understand it is great to be a parent. But being a parent doesn't mean you have to, you know, we have to have better control and take our role as parenting more seriously, right? So a lot of it means that sometimes we have to realize that this Hellenistic system taught us to be childish in some ways and taught us not to take on responsibility for some things. We have to be able to be responsible adults with our children. And yeah, it starts there. We got to move back towards responsibility. And I know that that's kind of hard to do, but sometimes you have to be willing and obedient to be like, the question is, what I'm doing every day, is it working for me? And if it's not working for me, what group, what organization, what examples, what do I need to do to be better. And I think at the end of the day, everybody still want to still.
So a parent needs to be realistic,
Mhm.
needs to be accountable.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you for that. So we'll move to the next question. So, what practical role must the melanated woman take in this fight for liberation? What practical role must the melanated female take in the fight for liberation? Sister Umi. What practical role must the melanated female take in this fight for liberation? Keep in mind that this session is titled The Revolutionary Christ in Raising Children Who Refuse to Bow to Empire. So, what is your role in this fight for liberation to ensure that you are raising children who refuse to bow to empire?
Well, I'll start it off. The first thing I think is the child have to see the example, the female working along with the male to create division and make it plain so that they would be able to accomplish it.
Okay. Sister Venus, why is ancestral knowledge and cultural continuity important in raising the next generation of liberators? Why is ancestral knowledge and cultural continuity important in raising the next generation of young liberators?
Before I answer that question, I need to neaten up something that I said before.
Okay.
Because sometimes people go with the story because I'm always an animated person. So I have never allowed my child to see this image of an angry Black woman. Never.
Okay.
When I speak about speaking to these people, I know the knowledge I have about my son and myself at that time when I was telling the story is firm. I believe what I'm doing is correct because I'm following scriptures. But I am an animated person. So when I tell a story, I get excited. But I have never allowed myself son to see that angry Black woman. And I know people would go the story, oh, she was really angry. No, I told what I had. I said what I said, and it must be done that way. Yes? So to answer your next question, you said that how can we?
Why is ancestral knowledge and cultural continuity important in raising the next generation of liberators? Ancestral knowledge and culture.
It shapes the child. The knowledge that you possess on our story, whether it be on a level of spirituality, herbalism, agriculture, it shapes the child because you are imparting these information to the child based on your knowledge. And in passing that, what happens is that the child listens because I was one that I knew on my father's side and both on my mother's side also, that they were skilled people who use their hands. So when I looked at it, I said, you know what, let me speak to somebody because I don't know what I'm going to do. How am I going to get him to be in a world that he embrace our culture? And when I say embrace our culture, knowing that what he gives to the world is of the best. It is done with a sense of righteousness. It's done with a sense of honesty, right? So I had to go to somebody else to get that because at that time I didn't have the information, but I knew he needed something So his father and I had a discussion, and both of us end up at a different point in time going to our parents. So they told us certain things, and we came together and we decided, okay, we are going in this direction. He's going to be a skilled person using his hands. Of course, I'll tell you, he's a plumber and he's an electrician, right? Both certified. Because it is the knowledge that in our family, we were top-notched in those skills. And so he could have gone to his uncle, gone to his aunt, gone to his cousins, and they would have guided him, and they did guide him, because culturally we were saying, this is what we know under the level of labor. Under this level of spirituality, now that's a whole different ball game, because his father was brought up as a what you call a what's the word? Sort of like an Anglican background. And so we had differences because I was following, again, scriptures based on Bassa's predecessor. So before we had anything, any arguments, anything that would disturb the balance that we wanted in this child, we too had to have a conversation. And as a person, I would not move. I will not move. And with his father, he would not move. So we had to find a common ground, because it was with talks that we had decided that both of us will raise our child. I was told in the earliest that I, as a woman, cannot raise a boy child. So I followed that rule. But I also wanted to be a person who could embrace exactly what is in scriptures. Both male and female must come together to raise children. We must. And culturally, it is sound. Culturally, it is sound. And I found no fault in it, so I moved in that direction. What was the other part of the question, sir?
You answered it. The question was talking about ancestral knowledge and cultural continuity, and you touched all of those parts. So thank you, my sister. And this has been a revolutionary fight in raising children who refuse to bow to empire. This has been section 3. Because of time restraints, we have to wrap it up. So thank you, my sisters, and namaste.
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 Yes, I